Now, before you pick back up, Jack, I have an important question.
Yes.
Would you rather die or
Yes.
have the uncomfortable situation of drinking warm chocolate chip cookies? Because you had a very strong reaction to that the first time.
Connor, and this is how I know we're very good friends. I literally wrote in my book, just let me fucking die with this fucking iced, warm, liquid chocolate chip cookie nonsense.
That makes me so happy. Hello, and welcome to Notes from the Oracle. I'm Connor, and together with Jack, my co-host from Cabin 6, we're going beyond Half-Blood Hill to take a closer look at the electrifying mythology of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Book 1, The Lightning Thief. Chapter 22, The Prophecy Comes True. The very end of the novel. It's a little bittersweet. I'm excited to start Sea of Monsters after this, but I'm really sad to see Lightning Thief go. I mean, even just to finish one book of the podcast is really exciting.
It's whatever, I guess. I'm just not really feeling it. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think we're going to cut it here. All done, over.
No, you're right. Definitely bittersweet. There was part of me that was kind of like, man, I'm getting a little emotional. Like, we did it. We are finishing the first book for the podcast. We have been sticking with this project for quite some time. In terms of recording, almost a year, right? Around
For
then? 9 months?
recording,
10 months?
we started in September, November of last year, so we're getting pretty close. Yeah, we're like three quarters of a year.
And it's been such a constant. Even if we've had to take breaks in between recordings, and obviously life happens, but I've known like, oh, the podcast is there and we're reading the first book. And you know what? If we finish the first book, that's awesome. But there were points where I'm like, dude, we're literally just two guys with a microphone. Do you know how many people do that and then don't stick with it? Like everybody.
Yeah.
So I am very proud of us for sticking with it. And it would have hit me harder finishing this book and closing it and going, I did it. If I didn't realize, oh, we've barely even scratched the surface. Like, there's still so much more. There's so much more to do.
I was writing the notes for one of our myths today, and I came across a more robust other myth that I would like to talk about in the future. And I was like, oh, we'll talk about that in Battle of the Labyrinth. And then I was doing another one, and I was like, oh, we'll talk about that in House of Hades, Count's Finger. That's only 11 books from now.
Yeah, I was going to say, by the time we get there, we're going to be, like, collecting Social Security. But we still have a lot more to get into, and I'm definitely looking forward to keep diving into these things with you. And that said, we're still not done with this first book. So let's get into this last chapter and finish it off with a bang. So the chapter begins with something that's a bit dark. Percy says, we are the first heroes to return alive to Camp Half-Blood since Luke.
That is so important. That is a pivotal line. That means a lot to how we got to this. And I feel like as the story is wrapping itself up, I'm sure that's an intentional detail that is added in before we get to Luke's big reveal later in the chapter.
Yes, absolutely. And so it makes sense that there's all this fanfare. Of course, I would feel like historically a successful quest would be met with a lot of merriment and sense of celebration, but this is huge. And I like how there's laurel wreaths and a big feast that's prepared, and there's a procession that goes down to the bonfire, and that's where they got to burn the burial shrouds that were just ready for them, which, unless this is something that had been referenced in prior chapters, I just took that as like, ye of little faith. Like, they said, damn, they're dead. They're dead. They're not coming back.
What's crazy is this is tradition, which means they just assume that every single child they send on a quest, they're like, it's probably likely that they die. We should make a burial shroud.
That is crazy. Imagine, like, leaving Half-Blood Hill. You get into the taxi with Argus. They roll over the horizon. Chiron's like, bye, good luck. And then he's like, all right, let's get the caskets ready.
Yeah, that's what this is.
But they made it. Hooray, huzzah. We get some good back and forth between Annabeth and Percy and some just proper camp half-blood demigod shenanigans. Percy says that Annabeth's shroud is a beautiful gray silk that's embroidered with owls. And he makes a just offhand remark, oh, it's such a shame not to see you be buried in it. It's so nice. And she punches him in the face and says to shut up. Adorable.
All right, hold on.
And
You added the punched him in the face.
it's implied. She punched him in the face.
Breaks his nose.
That's right. It was a quick jab right to the nose, as a child of
No.
Athena would do. That's the most
Of
efficient place
course.
to strike outside of the throat, but she likes him. So we get that, which is adorable. I love how Percy is, at this point, the only son of Poseidon. There is nobody else in his cabin. So the Ares cabin volunteered to make his burial shroud. And instead of it being this beautiful something that is reminiscent of maybe the sea at sunset or the ocean depths or coral reefs or the glistening gills of the creatures that live in his father's domain, it's an old bedsheet with a very sloppily painted smiley face with X'd out eyes around the border and the word loser painted really big in the middle.
I just love Percy's retort. It was fun to burn.
It was fun
And
to
it
burn,
was,
period.
Percy. Apollo's cabin led a sing-along and passed out s'mores. Percy is surrounded by his old Hermes cabin mates, Annabeth's friends from Athena, and Grover's satyr buddy. And of course, now we get to learn Grover is admiring his brand new searcher's license that he just received from the Council of Cloven Elders. That'll show those old goats.
Yeah, they did it. He did it. He's official now. And the council, who sucked the one other time they were mentioned, says this time around that he was brave to the point of indigestion. He
What
was
does that even
horns and
mean?
whiskers above anything we have seen in the past. And they've seen a lot, so that's the big deal.
That is true. It's fun. I like that we get this little moment of celebration as we settle back into camp. It feels really earned after everything they've been through. And I know we've been saying that as they've gotten win after win in these last couple chapters.
Mm-hmm.
This feels a little bit less like, big win, reward, and more just, yeah, man.
Welcome home.
Good. Yes. And I love that Percy says, even Dionysus's welcome home speech wasn't enough to dampen my spirits. Yes, yes. So the little brat didn't get himself killed, and now he'll have an even bigger head. Well, huzzah for that. It's
Yeah.
delightful.
Yep. And immediately goes into his other announcements.
Yep. Moving on.
Moving on, we got other shit to do.
We move on from there, and then we get a few updates on Percy's parents. And we start with Poseidon as he moves back into cabin 3. And I like that he describes how it doesn't feel lonely anymore. He has friends to train with during the day. But then he gets into the part about his dad, and I thought this was a good place to end. It's a fitting place to end. It's not definitively positive, but it's certainly not negative either. Percy listens to the sea, and he knows his dad is out there. Maybe he wasn't quite sure about Percy yet. Maybe he hadn't even wanted him born, but he was watching. And so far, Percy says, he was proud of what I had done. And I think that's a really good place to leave that off. It's still
I
got
agree.
some of that trepidation from both sides, but Percy is no longer afraid of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. It would have bugged me if it was like, wave a wand, they met each other once, and now Percy's like, and I will fight for the name of Poseidon, my father before me. He's like, you know what? Maybe he's not as much of a dick as I thought he was a few weeks or a couple months ago. He still hasn't done enough, but at the very least, I feel like there is some level of understanding that wasn't there before, and that's
Yeah.
a start.
Absolutely. And then we get to learn about Sally. And
Yes.
we all know what Sally's up to. Percy says, as for my mother, she had a new chance at life. Her letter arrived a week after I got back to camp. She told me Gabe had left mysteriously. Disappeared off the face of the planet, in fact. She'd reported him missing to the police, but she had a funny feeling they would never find him. On a completely unrelated subject, she'd sold her first life size concrete sculpture entitled The Poker Player to a collector through an art gallery in Soho. Wow. Big choices, Sally. He deserved it,
Yeah,
don't get me wrong.
eh, right. And again, I had to remind myself because it's been a while in real life since I like read the prior chapters. I was like, damn, that's dark and intense. Nope, he deserved it. He deserved it and worse, truly. But again, kudos to Rick for making one of the most abhorrent people in fiction to where you're like, yeah, fuck yeah. He's stone. He's dead. They killed him and then sold his body and made a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah, it does very much explain why they changed it in the show. Because in the show, he's just sort of a bumbling idiot, not
Yeah.
actively cruel, and so he wouldn't have deserved it. So it's just like, if you make a bad choice, you get a bad consequence. Here, it is so fucking deserved for this
Oh
piece
yeah.
of shit human being. But with that,
Yeah.
she gets a nice profit. And with
She
that
does.
profit, she's able to put a deposit down on a new apartment and make a payment on her first semester's tuition at NYU. Good for Sally. Little
You
weird that
know,
you
good
sold a
for
corpse,
Sally.
but good for
Yeah.
Sally.
I mean, hey man, it's art. Maybe it's supposed to make a statement. I don't fucking know. What
Something
I
like that.
find interesting is that she made a lot of money. Enough money to where she's buying her own apartment in New York City, right? That's a big deal. But now she's going back to school, which is great. And she's going to school at NYU. Do you know how fucking expensive NYU is? It's very expensive, Connor. There are a lot of other schools. And you know what? I'm not trying to dunk on Sally. She deserves to go to NYU. It's a great school with a great program. I think, if anything, that's an indication she's got fuck you money now. She has so much. Not just like, oh man, I can get an apartment and go back to school. Like, I can get whatever apartment I kind of want and also go to school literally wherever I want, no problem, and have money left over. I do like how the art collection that bought the poker player sculpture said it's a huge step forward in super ugly neo realism, which I didn't realize there were steps to make in that. But I also find it interesting, and maybe I'm wrong because I'm not an artologist, okay?
Yep.
But my understanding of neorealism is that one, it's a concept within international relations regarding the theory of hegemonic power. So that's definitely not what they're talking about here. So I'm like, all right, does neorealism exist? So I looked it up. I have no fucking clue how a sculpture could be neorealistic. I genuinely don't, because a lot of these things that I'm looking at are very colorful. They're all paintings. They are borderline abstract in like their brushstrokes. And I just don't think that neorealism applies to sculptures. I think it's physically impossible, which means that not only has Sally made a huge step forward, she may have taken the first step forward in this, which would
The
explain
only
why she
step
made so much
forward.
money.
I think that Rick just said, what's some fancy art words? I am a writer, not a visual artist. And then he did stuff.
Yeah, and he stumbled on an art form that's actually real, but he just did the wrong one.
I guess so. But Sally won't be making any further steps. She says, I've disposed of that box of tools you left me. It's time for me to turn to writing.
Where the fuck did she put the head? Do we learn this? Do we know what she does with it?
In the show, she puts it in the fridge to keep it fresh.
Okay, but we're not talking about the show right now. We're talking about the book, Connor.
Nope, we have
And in the
no
book, she
book
just says
canon
she gets
answer.
rid of it.
Yep.
Okay.
I
We
like
just
to
don't
think
know.
that she threw it in the ocean somewhere as like a, hey, I've been taking care of this kid for a while. Do me a favor. Get rid of this head for me.
Get rid of your old girlfriend. Heavy air quotes, girlfriend.
Yeah, yep.
Maybe. You know what? That's a good guess. I'll take that. Part of me thought she just like, it's New York, just like threw it on a street corner in one of the piles.
God, that would be awful. Just imagining somebody stumbling upon it, the horrors they'd experience.
Well, they would experience it for a brief moment and then they'd be another art piece.
That's true. I suppose the real horror would be other people wondering why a statue garden was slowly forming around a dumpster.
But they wouldn't though, because it's New York. They'd be like, "Oh, it's a Banksy. Banksy's doing this."
That would be what people would think. With her note, she does send one other important detail, which is
Mhm.
that she's found a private school in New York for Percy to go to. She's put a deposit down in case he wants to enroll for 7th grade. And again, I really like where Percy ends up with both of his parents at the end of this chapter. Because we know he's going to take her up on this offer, but he says, I folded the note carefully and set it on my bedside table. Every night before I went to sleep, I read it again and I tried to decide how to answer her. I like the delay. I like that he doesn't immediately know what to do because he's found a space that makes him feel at home where he belongs. And he's grappling with, do I want to risk losing that? And that's a very human thing to be unsure of. And with that, there's also this additional layer. Sally has picked one in the city. She makes a very clear note that she has found a private school in the city, which means she's also listening to him about him being closer. And for the rest of the series, when Percy goes to school, he will be living at home with his mom in her apartment because Gabe isn't there to torture him, I guess. And they can have a normal family dynamic, which is really cool. And so there's a lot of layers to this, and I like all the layers. I think they add their own distinct bits of how Percy's feeling, Sally's growth as well, and those two things interplaying against one another.
Yeah, I also think another layer that Percy is considering is he would love to be with Sally, but also his presence is an outright danger to her. He
Absolutely.
is a beacon for monsters. So I think that is also a large factor that he is weighing out. Do I put my mom in danger again just by my presence? She's already given up so much for me. Maybe she deserves time to be a fucking person.
Yeah, I hadn't considered it from that angle, but that's a very good point as well.
But he's got time to noodle on it.
Mhm.
Besides, summer's only really just began, you know?
It's only the 4th of July at this point.
And now it's
Well,
the 4th of July. That's right.
after the little paragraph break.
Mhm. And this is where, again, I have really nothing of substance to add to this next part outside of like, this is the stuff I want more of when there are adaptations of Percy Jackson. Weird, quirky, demigod nonsense happening at camp.
Yeah.
And that is the 4th of July fireworks display that is put on by Cabin 9, the Hephaestus kids, where they don't just settle for the basic little tiddlywink red, white, and blue explosions. They've got a big ass barge offshore that they've loaded with these massive, like, artillery missile rockets. And according to Annabeth, who's seen the show before, the blasts are like specifically sequenced to happen so like one after another very tightly so it looks like frames of animation across the sky. They're basically doing drone shows before drone shows were a thing,
And with actual fireworks, which is kind of crazy.
which is insane. I can't help but feel like if there are any like epileptic demigods, they just can't attend because that is a lot.
Yeah.
And it's so loud. Like, I
Oh,
feel kind of bad for the satyrs. But back
right.
to the good stuff, Connor.
Yes.
Back to happy, good stuff. Annabeth and Percy are spreading a picnic blanket out and waiting for the firework display, and Grover showing up, and he's getting ready to say goodbye.
Yeah, what the hell
He's
happened to
got
happy
on.
good stuff, Jack?
Well, but this is happy because Grover gets to do what he's wanted to do his entire life.
Yeah, that's
He gets
true.
to be a seeker. Maybe bittersweet, but still exciting. He's wearing his usual stuff, and this next little bit is interesting. Percy says that in the last few weeks, Grover had started to look older, like he's almost high school age now. So, like, do satyrs just grow in like spurts every, for like a couple of weeks? They just grow a couple of years and then they stop, and then they grow a couple of years within the span of a week or two, and then they stop.
I'm gonna put it more in the camp of satyrs are magical creatures, so it's probably based in some level of earning the searcher's license, being in tune with nature, and that being a satyr's ultimate sort of goal that, like, magically he maybe willed himself to growth,
Mm,
to
okay, I
maturity.
like that.
Like, maybe his physical form reflects how he's feeling because he is a magic creature.
Oh, you've got to earn puberty. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
What a reward. His goatee's gotten thicker. He's put on a little bit of weight. His horns had grown at least another half inch or so. Or no, a full inch. My apologies. And this is a fun little reminder that we got. Percy says he now has to wear his Rasta cap all the time to pass as human. And I'd forgotten that he was wearing a Rasta hat. I
Yeah, I
forgot
try
that
to
that was
blot
his
that
go
out.
to. Yep. So that's a nice little reminder at the very end of the book. He says, I'm leaving. I just wanted to come and say, you know. And he can't say it. He just can't. And Percy says, I feel so happy for him. And it's not every day that a satyr gets permission to go look for the great god Pan, using the full title. But it's hard to say goodbye. And of course that makes sense. But this line really stuck out to me. I'd only known
Mhm.
Grover a year, yet he was my oldest friend. Damn.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, it sticks with you because I remember what it was like to be the kinda outcast kid, especially around middle school, and I knew how important it was to have those 1 or 2 people that I could really count on, that would always have my back. And then you do the
Mhm.
same thing through college, and you're in a new place. And I remember this exact feeling of like, damn, it's so sad to see my friends who I've known for so long, who have supported me, go these different directions and explore their own thing.
Yeah. But also just contextualizing that Percy and Grover have only been friends for a year,
Yeah.
but it's felt like a lifetime. And in a way, it has been. But the
Mm.
idea that not only is it they've only known each other for a year, but they've been through so much together, but that Grover is still Percy's oldest friend because he never had any before that. And like that
Mhm.
again, it's no new information. It's not some big revelation, but just again, having that thrown out there at the very end with this new profundity to their relationship, their friendship, I would say brotherhood at this point. You go through all that shit together, you're brothers. Like you are bonded. It makes me happy for Percy, but it still makes me sad. Like, yeah, all the hurt that's gone on in his life is not undone now that he has found a friend or multiple friends. There's still a lot there that hurts and is raw.
Absolutely. Even with such a solid parent as Sally, but having to deal with the absolute shit show that was Gabe. And it's hard to think, especially with Grover being that kind of slightly older, more responsible friend, how much Percy might have even come to rely on him for just support in everyday life. They were roommates at Yancey Academy.
Yeah. And this goodbye, which we'll talk more about the actual goodbye, but I just want to make a note, is the first one in a series in which Percy starts to feel lonely again. Not because he is actually alone, but because he has learned the beauty that is the presence of other people who actually care about him not being there with him. And that's a different type of loneliness.
You've hit the nail on the head. It is so much more palpable to feel loneliness when you know what you're missing. He says he wishes they could go with him, but humans and Pan, dot, dot, dot. Annabeth says, we understand. You got enough tin cans for the trip? Yeah. And you remembered your reed pites? Geez, Annabeth, you're like an old mama goat, which is really cute. Just,
Yeah.
she's concerned about him. But then that's it. He gripped his walking stick, slung a backpack over his shoulder, He looked like any hitchhiker you might see on an American highway. Nothing like the little runty boy I used to defend from bullies at Yancey Academy. Then they hug and they say their goodbyes. And I know it's the last chapter of the book. I do wish we got to have a little bit more time with this, but I don't know what else you would have done with it. I think I'm just sad to see Grover go.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It is very underwhelming as a goodbye, but I almost feel like they're like, "Well, buddy, we've come a long way," and start, like, reminiscing and stuff. Would that have been neat? Yeah. Would that have felt right? Probably not.
I agree. Honestly, it's just about right. Good writing, Rick. You win again.
You did it, Rick. Believe it or not, Rick actually wrote a good book. Huh, who would have
Hi,
thought?
pal. You could even argue that Grover finally not just achieving his searcher's license, but heading off on his own journey is a sense of freedom. And the fact that that all coincides with the 4th of July is symbolism.
Mm. Mhm. Is that what you're running with, Connor?
That's what I'm running with. Are you buying it? Did it work?
No. I love that you thought that way, and I don't think that I can prove you wrong, but I've given you a lot of wiggle room already in this, and I am not gonna give you that for free.
It's okay. I just wanted a way to remind the listeners that this is still all happening on the 4th of July. So, as they do their final hugs and goodbyes, fireworks explode to life overhead, and we get to see 3 more depictions: Hercules killing the Nemean lion, Artemis chasing the boar, and George Washington, who, by the way, was a son of Athena, crossing the Delaware. Percy calls out to Grover. He says,
Mhm.
"Wherever you're going, I hope they make good enchiladas." And that's it. And honestly, I think I wouldn't have it any other way.
This is the end. Everybody's starting to part ways, and it is interesting that and it makes sense why, but it's interesting that it is Grover is the one that leaves first,
Mhm.
as opposed to the idea of maybe it's a parallel, but the idea of he's one of the first people that we're introduced to aside from Percy, and then he's the first to leave Percy's side. I almost wonder if how it would have felt if it was inverted, where it's Annabeth is still there, she's one of the first to leave, and then the final goodbye is with Grover to properly kind of literally bookend this, where it
Mhm.
starts with, "Hey, this is Grover. He's my best and only friend." And then it's, "All right, goodbye, Grover, my best friend, but no longer only friend."
Yeah. I think you could argue that by him leaving it first, it highlights that he's no longer Percy's only friend, which is an
Mhm.
important revelation and bit of growth for Percy, right? Percy has always
Yeah.
been a standoffish asshole, self-admittedly. So it's really important that that is a part of his growth, is he's learning to work with others.
Mhm. I agree. And honestly, I think you persuaded me that this was the correct way. The idea that, yep, Grover has gone, but Percy is not alone yet.
And with that, as it says, July passed. We get a little paragraph of what I described as Percy doing close enough to normal summer camp shit, which feels a little weird after having gone on the most important quest of 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, life goes on. Percy, he's still lingering on what happened. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Be a little weird if he wasn't thinking about the traumatizing shit that he's been through, but specifically, he still, as he has done throughout this entire book, been like, there's something missing. Something doesn't feel right. He's going through what the oracle said again, the prophecy. He says, "You shall go west, face the god who has turned." Okay, great. Even though the traitor god had turned out to be Ares rather than Hades, we found the traitor god. That's pretty
Yep.
cut and dry. "You shall find what was stolen and see it safe returned." Got it. Master Bolt delivered. Helm of Darkness. Back on Hades' oily head. Which you
Nice
didn't have
one.
to throw that. fucking straight to Hades. I get it, but like, come on. He's trying his best. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. And this is really the sticking point. Percy's like, I mean, Ares had pretended to be my friend, but like, even though Percy doesn't say, I don't really believe that, you can just tell from the writing he doesn't really believe that. And then finishing, you shall fail to save what matters most in the end. He says, I had failed to save my mom, but only because I'd let her save herself and I knew that that was the right thing. So why then is he still so uneasy? And we don't get an answer to that.
And we
We
don't
move
get an
on.
answer yet. Well
Yeah,
done, Rick. Well done again.
yeah, I know. It's just time
Keeping me
keeps going.
keeping me at the edge of the page, ready to turn it over, even in the last chapter.
Yeah. And you remember when I said that summer just started? I lied. Summer is now ending.
Summer is now over. It's the
It's
last night of
done.
summer session.
Yep, it came all too quickly. And like, I'm sure we've all, can remember actually having a proper summer break and it being like, woohoo, it's the last day of school. Hooray! And then you blink and it's like, oh, wait, it's done. I didn't do anything. Like, I barely got to enjoy it.
We get to do all the fun end of summer stuff. The end of summer bead is such a distinct piece of the lore that says this is the end of the book.
Yep.
It's over. It's done. And so Percy gets his very own leather necklace, and when he sees the bead, he says, I was glad the firelight covered my blushing. The design was pitch black with a sea green trident shimmering in the center. The choice was unanimous, Luke announced. This bead commemorates the first son of the sea god at this camp, and the quest he undertook into the darkest part of the underworld to stop a war. Everybody cheers. Yay! Even the Ares cabin felt obliged to stand. I like that
Yeah.
Luke announces it. It reminds us of his seniority right before they swing with the betrayal and hit you even harder.
Mm-hmm. I do like, as he is announcing it, just the idea, the first son of the sea god at this camp, the quest he undertook into the darkest part of the underworld to stop a war. When you very succinctly contextualize it that way, yeah, that shit's very impressive.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I almost feel like sometimes it's like you got so in the weeds. We're so in the minutia of it, you kind of forget what is actually happening. And so
Mhm.
having it just point blank spelled out. Percy's the first of his kind that we've had here, and he did something that is straight up impossible. It's like, fuck. I guess we did just go through that whole adventure, huh?
Yeah. And as he's thinking about all that, he kind of looks around. He says he'd never felt as happy or as sad as he did in that moment. He'd finally found a family, people who cared about me and thought I'd done something right. And I love that. Found family, gotta be one of my favorite tropes. Also,
Mhm.
it's exactly what Luke thinks doesn't exist and is what separates the two of them. And that's really cool. Again, we're planting all those seeds to make the conversation later hit harder.
Yes. And the idea that it's Luke, you say, it reminds us of his seniority. Yeah, I think the other kind of twist of the knife is that Luke is announcing that the glory and the momentous occasion that is going to be commemorated forevermore from this summer is Percy Jackson succeeding at a quest, which in the same breath would probably follow the first successful quest since Luke failed his.
Yeah. And it also not only highlights Luke's failed quest, but Luke's failed machinations in this book.
Yes,
Got a sting.
failures. Yes, everything. Literally, that entire announcement is all just about Luke's failure from every single perspective. And Rick doesn't make mention of that. He doesn't make specific note of it. He doesn't even write that Luke is excited or dour or like the shadows are crawling across his face. He just says Luke announces. So this is maybe me filling in gaps where there aren't any. Maybe this is me just glazing the Luke character arc. more than I should, but I choose to believe that this is a big kick in the balls to Luke as he's doing it, no matter how he tries to perceive it.
Oh, absolutely. Percy then gets a letter on his bedside table. He knows Dionysus must have filled it out because it reads Dear Peter Johnson instead of his actual name.
Uh
And it
huh.
basically just says, hey, by noon today, you have to tell us if you're deciding to stay at Camp Half Blood or if you're going home. And Percy has not decided yet because
Yeah,
that's
well,
another
hold
thing
on.
about 80.
No, 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 no. We're not skipping over this letter. Couple of things. All
Okay.
right. First off, Percy says that he can tell Dionysus filled it out because not just he got his name wrong, he stubbornly insisted on getting his name wrong, which means Percy truly believes, if not outright knows, that Dionysus does know Percy's name and just refuses to use it out of, I don't know, spite, principle,
Yeah, it does make
which
it
is
very clear
hilarious.
he's been doing this all summer.
Yes, on purpose, just because. And that is hilarious. The letter is as follows. If you intend to stay at Camp Half-Blood year-round, you must inform the Big House by noon today. If you do not announce your intentions, we will assume you have vacated your cabin or died a horrible death. Cleaning harpies will begin work at sundown. They will be authorized to eat any unregistered campers. All personal articles left behind will be incinerated in the lava pit. Have a nice day! Like, dog, they're just gonna eat you? What if what if the paperwork got lost in transit? What if a harpy didn't know that it was an authorized camper? I feel like that's dangerous.
That is, you're right, that was worth reading. I was like, oh, it's just a letter, it's just paperwork. Something important was in there.
Yes, the cleaning harpies are going to eat campers. Once again, Camp Half-Blood is not a safe place for these demigods.
What do you mean? It's the safest place for demigods. There are no monsters except for the ones that we bring in to clean your rooms and let eat you sometimes.
And eat you if you don't file the proper paperwork.
You know, that's what they do at the DMV too. They're like, sorry, you didn't fill out Form 1B. We're sending
That's
you to the
right.
eating chambers.
Whoa, the eating chambers. Hold on, now you've got my attention.
Sorry, would it be better if I called it the cannibalism chamber?
Yeah, all right, I don't want to check that one out. I think I know what happens there.
Percy says that's another thing about ADHD. Deadlines just aren't real to me until I'm staring them in the face. Summer was over, and I still hadn't answered my mother or the camp about whether I'd be staying. Now
Yeah.
I only had a few hours to decide. So, of course, he does
Yeah.
the only natural thing and does not decide.
Yep. He says, actually, I've still got some time. I still
Yep.
got time. He looks at his watch. He does not have time. But he's going to just assume that he does. And he's like, I'm going to go train. I'm going to go train. I'll think about it while I'm doing sword stuff.
Yeah.
And I do like how he notes that the decision should be easy. Like, dude, what would you rather do? 9 months of doing cool hero training or 9 months of sitting in a classroom? Who wouldn't pick the cool hero stuff? But here's the thing.
Mhm.
Sally's at home. And Percy is now properly starting to weigh, like, dude, if I go back, I can live with her for real, real. Like, actually enjoy being at home with my mother instead of sneaking away and having maybe some nice moments in the stairwell or in Percy's room before Gabe fucking busts in and says, "Where's the 7-layer dip?" Or, having to like run away to Montauk for a weekend. It could just be nice all the time. It could be normal. It could be loving. And I like how he's weighing this out in his head. Do I go back with my mom or do I stay here at camp? By considering something Annabeth says, which we're going to put a pin in that.
Mhm.
But Annabeth says the real world is where the monsters are. That's where you learn whether you're any good or not. And that's important. Not only is that just a great quote, but it shows that Annabeth has intrinsically changed some of Percy's worldview, which is really cool. And it gets even cooler later on when I'm going to reference that pin again.
And with that, he heads down to do some sword practice. He sees the other campers getting ready to leave. The campgrounds, he says, were mostly deserted, shimmering in the August heat. I like the description of Argus helping the Aphrodite kids haul their Gucci suitcases and makeup kits.
He's back! He's back, ladies and gentlemen! My boy Argus is here. Surely in the next, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 14 pages, he's gonna do something huge, profound, earth-shattering. His importance will be known.
I believe in you. I mean, I've
I
read this,
believe in
so
Argus. I also just read the chapter, but I choose to believe that he's the game changer. He's the disruptor, Connor. It's
maybe it's
just,
not this,
oh,
you know?
it's gonna be this book, Connor.
Oh,
Just
okay.
you wait. He's being the glue that keeps this camp together by hauling a bunch of children's suitcases over the hill and making sure that they get to the shuttle bus safely. What a guy. And as Percy's seeing all of these people, one after the other, go away, the camp becoming more and more of a ghost town, he tells himself, don't think about leaving yet. Just train. Fixate. And so he goes to the sword fighters arena and he sees Luke is there. He's got his gym bag plopped off to the side of the stage. He's working solo, wailing on battle dummies with a sword that Percy had never seen before. I love that still. In the last chapter of this book, we're getting new like items and mechanics and concepts thrown at us.
Mm-hmm.
He says it must have been a regular steel blade because he's slashing the dummies' heads right off, stabbing through their straw-stuffed guts. And Luke is really, really getting in it. His counselor shirt is just dripping with sweat. He's soaking right through it. His expression, Percy notices, is so intense, his life might have really been in danger.
Which it is.
Which it is. There's a fucking Linkin Park song playing in his head. Montage, he's suffering the pain. He's being Mr. Edgelord right now. Percy has no idea. Percy's watching from a distance, fascinated, as he is just brutally dispatching these straw-filled dummies. Hacking off limbs, taking heads out, disemboweling them, and just reducing them to nothing.
Of course. The behavior of a sane person.
That's right, yes. And Percy is like, yeah, I know they're only dummies, like they can't do anything, but Percy still, who has seen a god fight, is in awe of Luke's skill.
It really does a good job of establishing, yet again, Luke's seniority, the danger of the threat he poses.
Yeah. And Percy wonders, how could this guy fail a quest? It just doesn't seem possible. And I think Luke would think the same way. I think he'd probably be in agreement.
It's just, it made me wonder again how he could possibly have failed at his quest. Finally, he saw me and stopped mid-swing. Percy. And it just moves on. It doesn't let you linger with it. There's no satisfying conclusion. It's meant to leave you dejected and unfulfilled. I think because that's how Luke feels.
Yeah.
You're supposed to start feeling how Luke is feeling, but you're also supposed to start feeling this edge of uncomfortability. I think this has been playing this whole chapter because then Percy starts noticing Luke's sword. The blade was two different types of metal. One edge bronze, the other steel. Luke noticed me looking at it. Oh, this? New toy. This is Backbiter. Not a suspicious name at all.
Yeah, that's definitely the name of a good guy weapon. I also like, just before we get into Backbiter, because Backbiter is a cool fucking weapon, but just before we move on, maybe this is me putting on my little English hat on. I'm stealing it from you. He regards Percy. Percy is embarrassed because he realized he was kind of like fangirling from a distance. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I was just, And Luke just goes, it's okay. He lowers the sword. Just doing some last minute practice. Percy, being Percy, makes a joke. Those dummies won't be bothering anybody anymore. And Luke just shrugs. He just goes, we build new ones every summer. Period. No joke. No witty repartee. No riff. And maybe I'm crazy, All right, maybe I'm un poco loco right now, Connor, but the line, whatever, we build new ones every summer, indicates just how fucking disposable Luke sees not only people, but I think that's him viewing it like, oh, yeah, like demigods. That's
Yeah,
how the gods view us. We build new ones every summer. What does it matter? They can be maimed, disemboweled, gutted, hacked to pieces. We'll make more.
I fully agree. And I think it's added to it by the indifference.
Yeah.
When we were first meeting Luke in our early camp chapters, we got a lot more of Luke's thoughts and emotions in his face. And now, not by description, Rick at no point says any of this, but by
Hmm.
the lack of description, you can just imagine him with this placid, calm, steely sort of emotion to him.
Yeah. And I love the lack of description here, which is something I very rarely say, but you're 100% right. There's nothing given. And that absence is so apparent in a good way.
I
It
really, yeah,
throws the reader off kilter. It makes you uncomfortable. Like something's off.
I really think it's exactly as you put it. It's supposed to make you, the reader, uncomfortable. Because I think you're also supposed to, by the time, and we'll go through this naturally, but by the time he says, "Hey, Percy, you want to go enjoy some cokes with me in the wood?"
Like,
Percy's also
no,
like,
hey man, I really don't want to
"Mm,
go to a second location with you. Yeah.
yeah, he's really uncomfortable. That's a great way to put it.
Uh-huh.
I really don't want to go to a second location with you.
And some of the uneasiness comes from the nature of Backbiter, despite its seemingly innocuous name.
Yeah, man, innocuous.
Luke turns the blade into the light and it glints wickedly. He says one side is celestial bronze, the other is tempered steel. Works on mortals and immortals both. And like, all right, why you need that, man?
Yup.
Like, what regular ass person are you planning to kill?
Percy has the Professor Oak moment again. There's a time and place for everything, but just not now. As he goes, I thought about what Chiron had told me when I started my quest, that a hero should never harm mortals, unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah. And so Percy inquires, because I didn't know they could make weapons like that. And Luke goes, they probably can't. It's one of a kind. And then we get the first bit of description of what Luke does. He gives a tiny smile and slides the sword into the scabbard and says, hey, I was actually going to come look for you. Want to go down in the woods? Anyways, man, yeah, I'm going to kill some like actual just mortal people. You want to come into the woods with me?
Yeah, yeah. And dude, having gotten no description of Luke's emotion throughout all of this, that being the first tiny
Mhm.
smile after it's
Yep.
one of a kind, and then going, I was actually going to come looking for you, is
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yep. That's haunting.
Yes. Like, it's great. It's great writing.
Yeah.
Haunting.
Percy follows it up with he's thinking internally, I don't know why I hesitated. Dude, I do. We just laid out why you hesitated. It's
Yes.
very good that you hesitated. Once again, Percy's spidey senses is tingling right now.
Yeah.
And he says he's conflicted, right? I should feel relieved that Luke was being so friendly, that he wants to hang out. But Percy says ever since that he'd gotten back from the quest that Luke had been acting a little distant. He says, I'm afraid that he might resent me for all the attention I'd gotten. And once again, even though Percy is an idiot, he is really, really good at recognizing threats.
Mm-hmm. And he's got it, man. I love that there's this next detail where it's something, again, so innocuous. You really shouldn't think that it's something worth being scared of. But Percy is like, you think it's a good idea? And Luke says, come on. And he pulls a 6-pack of Cokes out of his bag and says, drinks are on me. Percy stares at them, wondering where the heck he'd gotten them. There were no regular mortal sodas at the camp store. No way to smuggle them in unless you talk to a satyr. Maybe. But then he says something. Of course, the magic dinner goblets would fill with anything you want, but it just didn't taste the same as real Coke straight out of the can. Sugar and caffeine, my willpower crumbled. And I read that because on Percy's first day, he sits down to eat with who other than Luke.
Yep.
And what does he order himself? A Coke. No,
Coke.
a blue Coke.
Mm-hmm.
Luke has Percy's number. We've never seen Luke drink a Coke. And of course, it's perfectly normal for Luke to just be like, yeah, of course I like Coke. It's America. A lot of people like Coke.
A lot of people love Coke, and Percy's the biggest Coke head of all. I mean,
God damn it.
it's low-hanging fruit, but you just kept saying it, and it was like, come on, just get past this point. Get past this point, Jack. You're better than this. I'm not better than this.
I don't blame you.
Coke is America's pastime.
It is. And
Yeah.
he knows that Percy is going to crumble. Luke is manipulative. He is prepared. I even would hesitate to go so far as to say that the fact that they were in his gym bag said he thought he might have caught Percy down at the training grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't expect it, but was prepared anyway.
Literally everything that he does in this section matters and evokes something or relates back to something. Because Percy, now being the Coke head he is like, yeah, sure, I could do some Coke with you in the woods. Why not? They start walking and they're looking around for like a monster, but it's so hot. And all the monsters with any sense probably were taking their siestas in their nice, cool caves. But somehow, how ironic, they find a shady spot by the creek where Percy had broken Clarice's spear during the first Capture the Flag game. This is a place of glory for Percy, a place of victory, a place where he started to properly come into his own. He was not a nobody at camp, a place where he is claimed.
It's a very important spot. It is by water, though. And I don't know if you were going to get there, but I do think that is objectively kind of stupid, despite all the other things that you say that are wonderful symbolism.
It is objectively kind of stupid. I give it a pass for a reason that we'll talk about later on.
Yep.
I like the idea that Luke views this place as yet another failure of his. Even though he is lauded as kind of this folk hero figure, he's the cool older brother that everybody wants to hang out with and everybody looks up to. This is where he lost, in his mind, some of his clout and some of his pull. Because there's a new shiny guy in town, and he's one of the big three.
And that undermines a lot of what he's looking to accomplish, especially if he is hoping to convince some of these other demigods to join him eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after Percy succeeds. It all started here.
Yeah. Yep. And so they sit on a big ass rock and they drink their soda and they're watching the sunlight through the woods and they're just quiet for a bit. And then Luke speaks up. So you miss being on a quest? And Percy says, with monsters attacking me every 3 feet? Are you kidding? And Luke raises an eyebrow. Percy says, yeah, I miss it. You? Now we're going to pause there. I'm not sure how I feel about that response.
I think that Percy's first instinct to say, nope, don't miss it at all, is thinking about the danger and the trauma. But knowing that Grover has already left at this point and been gone for a month, I take this, yeah, I miss it, as, you know what? I do kind of miss spending all of my time with my 2 best friends, especially knowing that this is the last day of camp and knowing that he has to make a choice and we obviously know the choice he makes, but you could probably guess that he has an inkling right now that he's going to go home, which means he's going to be on his own again. I think that's why he says, "Yeah, I miss it."
I think that's a very fair interpretation. I can't help but feel like throughout most, if not all of the book where Percy's on the quest, he talks about how much it fucking sucks and how he doesn't want to be there. I almost wish that there was a little corollary to it where he's like, the quest, no, I don't miss that, but I do miss being with Annabeth and Grover, or I miss sleeping under the starry sky with my friends, or something like that. That feels more in tune with Percy's character, because even though Percy is a fucking wild child, I don't know that he revels in the violence and the pain and constantly being on the razor's edge. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not interpreting Percy right. He's a wrathful dude, but he seems like the kind of guy that's like, I'm so mad that you made me that mad. I wish that didn't have to happen.
I totally agree. I think that's why I think of it very much as he's reminiscing on the time with his friends, as opposed to reminiscing on the questing itself.
Mm-hmm. I suppose it's
Yeah.
up for interpretation, and I'm a big proponent for the show don't tell. In that instance, I kind of would like if he just like told it,
Mhm.
because that just feels a little bit more true than, yeah, I miss it. What about you? Which, that aside, very minor,
Mhm.
but Percy is now looking at Luke and a shadow passes over Luke's face. And this is interesting. He says, I was used to hearing from the girls how good looking Luke was, but at the moment, he looked weary and angry and not at all handsome. His blonde hair was gray in the sunlight. The scar on his face looked deeper than usual. I could imagine him as an old man. And this is where properly, if there weren't alarm bells already, there it's happening. Like
Yep.
there's danger, danger. You need to get the fuck out of there. And if for some godforsaken reason you as a reader, even as a child, are not immediately starting to be like, whoa, this is not good. Why? This is getting scary.
Yeah.
Luke follows it up with, I've lived at Half Blood Hill year round since I was 14. Ever since Talia, well, I trained and trained and trained. I never got to be a normal teenager out there in the real world. Then they threw me one quest. And when I came back, it was like, okay, ride's over. Have a nice life. And he takes his crumpled Coke can and he throws it into the creek, which is pointed out immediately. Insane bit of punctuation on Luke's part.
Yeah.
Let's ignore all of the crimson red flags of the last statement he just gave, but now he's littering. And Percy says one of the first things you learn at Camp Half-Blood is don't litter.
This is the kick a puppy moment.
Yes.
But especially when you consider the environmentalist themes kind of throughout the novel, and not subtle either. It is very obvious that Rick is going, see, only a bad guy would litter.
Yeah. Let's forget about Backbiter and how, he feels such resentment that he got one quest that didn't go over well and then basically was thrown to the wayside by the gods and blah, blah, blah. Forget that. This guy just littered. And yeah, not only does that immediately indicate that he's a bad guy, now, maybe always a bad guy, right? Who's to say? But I like that Percy's rationale is not, well, you just don't litter because it's a bad thing to do. He's like, there are actual reasons at
Yeah,
Camp Half-Blood beyond just, we don't want to pollute our planet. The nature spirits will get you back.
they'll
You'll crawl into
torture
bed
you.
one night. Yes. You're going to find your sheets filled with centipedes and mud, and I'm sure all sorts of other horrid shit. There's going to be a bunch of slugs put in your toothpaste tube. Like, just the sky's the limit with them. And I like that that's into like, oh, yeah, Luke's a bad guy. But this also, in case it wasn't abundantly clear, yeah, it's the last day of summer, but this is Luke's last day at Camp Half-Blood, period. He's
Oh,
not
snap.
going to be sticking around.
It gets real intense real fast.
Yes. Yes, it does. he starts going on a tirade. The heck with the laurel wreaths. I'm not going to end up like those dusty trophies in the big house attic. And Percy says, hey, you make it sound like you're leaving. And then Luke gives him a twisted smile. Oh, I'm leaving, all right, Percy. I brought you down here to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And
He forgot the
then we
word
learn,
forever.
yeah, forever,
I plan to
but
kill
that's
you.
implied. Yeah, that's just heavily implied. Because what does Luke do? Something that no son of Hermes seemingly should be able to do. He snaps his fingers. A small fire burns a hole in the ground at Percy's feet, and then out crawls something glistening black about the size of Percy's hand, a scorpion. Which, okay, Luke is just magic.
Yeah.
We learned that. That's cool.
Dark Chronos magic.
Yep, Dark Chronos magic. What are your thoughts on the scorpion, Connor?
I'm mixed because I feel like we're supposed to know that Luke is a better sword fighter. I like it as he's a tricky guy and this is his trump card. Yeah, I think that's the extent of it. It's okay.
I think the scorpion is a little lame. We are in the world of Greek mythology, and you're giving us a scorpion.
And
You know,
I should clarify, I did look into this. Pit scorpions are not like a Greek monster that's referenced anywhere. In fact, I debated doing scorpions for this chapter, but the only scorpions in Greek mythology are giant scorpions, which are definitively different than pit scorpions because we will see them in a future novel. So this is just a scorpion.
it's just an arachnid. It's just a thing from actual real life.
Yep. It's deadly, though.
Percy does what any reasonable person would do, which is reach for his weapon. And Luke goes, I wouldn't. Pit scorpions can jump up to 15 feet. Its stinger can pierce right through your clothes. You'll be dead in 60 seconds. And I guess the scorpions, cool, I suppose. I don't know. It feels a little underwhelming. It's like Luke snaps his fingers. I brought you down here to say goodbye. A fire burns a hole down to the fucking pits. And then it's a little bug. A little bug crawls out.
I'll give it its due diligence, and I'll say this much. It shows planning on Luke's part. It's not big or flashy. If he summoned a big monster that roared, Chiron and other campers would come running. It's just a scorpion. Percy can't yell, he can't move. It is checkmate in the fewest moves possible.
Yeah, and that is true.
And that's very in line with Luke's very calculated, tricky character to do the most with the least possible effort. I lure you away and I pin you down with a tiny bug.
Yeah.
I agree that
And
it's a bit underwhelming, but it's calculated.
and the bit of credit I was going to give was the idea of he wants this to look like an accident. Like, yeah, he's a better sword fighter, but like what happens when people come across Percy who's cut to fucking ribbons and oh, Luke is gone. Now they know that Luke has just murdered Percy Jackson.
Well, especially because Percy is regarded as one of the other best swordsmen at camp. Like, he's one of the few people that in his first few lessons managed to pull one over on Luke. So it's like, how many people could beat Percy in a fight? The guy who just went on a quest to the underworld and survived.
Yeah. So I get it. He was killed by a New York scorpion. The all too regular, find him in the woods in Long Island, New York, the scorpions. I don't know. That's where it falls apart again a little bit. Whatever. We're being nitpicky. But there are other more exciting and important things happening.
Exactly.
Which is, hark, revelation. It finally hits Percy. You will be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. Skip a line. You.
It's
it
good.
hits.
And I love Luke's response. He stood calmly and brushed off his jeans. He doesn't even say anything. Yep, it was me. Glad we got there.
Me.
You're a bit slow.
You took the slow bus to get there, but you finally reached the destination.
It's really good. And then he absolutely does his evil monologue. I saw a lot out there in the world, Percy. Didn't you feel it? The darkness gathering, The monster's growing stronger. Didn't you realize how useless it all is? All the heroics, being pawns of the gods. They should have been overthrown thousands of years ago. But they've hung on, thanks to us half-bloods.
Hey, man, I get it.
Yeah, here's the thing. He doesn't stop there.
Yeah,
Percy's all, those are our parents. And he's like, that's supposed to make me love them? Their precious
yeah.
Western civilization is a disease, Percy. It's killing the world. The only way to stop it is to burn it to the ground. Start over with something more honest.
Yeah. Luke hit the phase of being an edgy teenager where he read Ted Kaczynski's The Industrial Revolution and Its Consequences and is like, you know what? This guy, he was onto some stuff. And not to be a fucking radical edgelord, but like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. There's a lot of fucked up stuff happening that we just kind of act as like it's the status quo because the powers that be say that this is the status quo. But like, does that have to be the case? It didn't always be that way. It doesn't have to still be that way. So why are we just complicit in our own struggle? Why? Why are we being complacent right now? He is hitting on some interesting concepts. It's nothing new. This is classic revolutionary talk. He's, of course, talking about it on a very, very large scale. And he then devolves into some, you know, eugenics-y territory, which we'll get to in a second. But I like there's one line from Percy, just, I couldn't believe this was happening. Like, reality is shattering around him right now with this.
I will say, jumping a little bit ahead, the next thing that Percy thinks is also very telling. There had to be a way out of this. I needed time to think. And then he's trying to drag the evil monologue out at this point.
Yeah,
Kronos,
you
I said,
sly dog.
that's who you serve. Exactly. It's really good.
Yeah, the entire back and forth, the front end of it is really, really good. We're going to start hitting on some stuff that I know you and I are going to want to break down a bit more. But Percy says, you're as crazy as Ares. And
Yeah.
that strikes a nerve with Luke. Says, Ares is a fool. He never realized the true master he was serving. If I had time, Percy, I could explain. But I'm afraid you won't live that long. And the scorpion still crawling up his pants. That's the noise the scorpion makes in my head. It goes do.
I love that.
This is where we get the Kronos name drop. Kronos, that's who you serve. The air got colder. And that's cool. Literally, that's cool. But again, I love the idea of that properly invoking Kronos' name seems to just drop the temperature. Everything gets a chill to it, even though he's in the deepest pit of Tartarus. And then, all right, everybody, it's the last chapter. Bingo cards out. What? Oh, he said Kronos. What does Luke say? You should be careful with names. That's right, because names have power. And even though literally later in this chapter they name drop Kronos. Oh, no, Luke does it at the bottom of this page multiple times.
Sure
Also
does.
name drops a bunch of other gods. Percy then name drops Kronos directly again later on in the chapter. So again, doesn't matter. You don't have to be careful with names. And
Well,
that is
hold
the
on
last.
now. You might cause a cool breeze in August. Wouldn't want that to
true.
happen.
That's right. Oh man, the humanity. You might actually feel kind of temperate in the summer heat. Ooh.
But then Luke, he starts ripping on he spoke to you too, Percy. You should have listened. Percy does he's brainwashing you, Luke.
This
You're
isn't
wrong.
you.
You're wrong. He showed me that my talents are being wasted. And he starts talking about how the quest that Hermes gave him to steal a golden apple from the Garden of Hesperides was useless, that it was pointless. Percy says, that's not an easy quest. Hercules did it. And Luke says, where's the glory in repeating what others have done?
Yeah.
He points at his scar. Oh my God. Yeah, go ahead.
And this is where we start getting into the complicated inner machinations and self-efficacy of one Luke Castellan. Because he flip-flops so much between saying, that quest was stupid, it was so low stakes, steal a golden apple from the garden. After all the training I'd done, all I got was that. And, oh, where's the glory in repeating what others have done? But he still failed it. He didn't do it.
No.
So clearly, it was too much for him. He was given something above what he was capable of. And even if it's not skill-wise, he was not mentally prepared enough for that. And that's 50% of the battle. Are you mentally able to do what's necessary? And that also means giving it your all no matter what is in front of you. No task too small. You're on
Yeah.
a quest.
And he even said as much, to your point about he just wasn't putting his all into it. He says,
Yeah.
my heart wasn't in it. Luke was never trying, which shows even back then there was this inkling of worthlessness, pointlessness rather, to it all.
Yeah.
I thought that was an important line, and I was glad you pointed it out too, because it really drives home that Luke was always destined to fail, because that is another part of his character here. He is the hero that has to fail to succeed. He was always going to fall. Even Hermes knew this, and Hermes tried to do something, and as Greek prophecies prophesy, set it in motion.
Yeah. I love the back and forth of that's the best he could think up. Where's the glory in repeating what others have done? All the gods know how to do is replay their past. My heart wasn't in it. Excuse, excuse, excuse. This wasn't good enough for me. I needed something better. I deserve something better. And you know what? Because I failed, it wasn't my fault. But also, yeah, my heart wasn't in it. If I really cared, I would have done it. It's all he does is excuses. It's cope. He's coping nonstop this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he comes back. And he was, despite the fact that he didn't get a quest and he was just kind of a regular run-of-the-mill, heavy, air quotes, run-of-the-mill son of Hermes, nothing spectacular, he's still the cool guy at camp. He's the de facto leader. He's the one people look up to. But his reputation is tarnished. Not only because he didn't get the quest he wanted, but because when he comes back after failing, all he gets is pity, or what he views as pity. And
Yeah.
that sets him off. It sets him off.
He
He
has
says,
a
I wanted to
scar.
pull Olympus down stone by stone right then, but I bided my time. Began to dream of Kronos. He convinced me to steal something worthwhile, something no hero had ever had the courage to take. When we went to that winter solstice field trip, while the other campers were asleep, I snuck into the throne room and took Zeus's master bolt right from his chair. Hades' helm of darkness, too. You wouldn't believe how easy it was. The Olympians are so arrogant. They never dreamed someone would dare steal from them. Their security is horrible. I was halfway across New Jersey before I heard the storms rumbling, and I knew they'd discovered my theft.
It's all good, man.
I know.
I really like Luke's evil monologue. I really like it a lot.
Yeah. And he's given another quest, one that he feels is he's worthy of. It is still a quest to steal something. How apt. And it's so interesting how he's like, yeah, this is a quest nobody would ever dream of. But he doesn't. Whereas with the quest he was given by his father that he failed, he's mad that it was so beneath him. It was so easy, right? My heart wasn't in it. And then he starts bragging at how easy and like brain dead this quest was. So which one is it, Luke? What do you want? You don't want a challenge. All you want is glory and prestige in a sense that you matter. And like, I get that. We talk a lot about that throughout this book. That's what Annabeth talks about. We talk about how Percy is actually pretty chill with like not having honor and not having glory, but still yearning to be remembered.
Yeah.
It's the mortal part of them.
Yeah.
And Luke doesn't realize that it's never going to be enough. And what is also fascinating, he does this quest. He isn't allowed to tell anybody. he's not satiated. Kronos has him on the hook by doing a quest where if it is said that he did it, people would be like, oh, holy shit, Luke Castellan stole two of the three most powerful items in all of existence. And that's what he'd want. He'd want that reverence. He'd want people to look up to him. He'd want people to be in awe. But he can't even get that with this. So what is it, Luke? What is it? It's so good. He's a man of so many contradictions in just a few pages.
Dude, I think that Luke's clear lack of understanding of his own situation, or even lack of understanding of his own emotions, is so palpable. It's what makes him clearly a distraught child as our villain. And I loved as well that you mentioned this aspect of Luke wanting glory. That's the human part of him. Because Annabeth, what she wants to do is she wants to build something. She wants to be remembered for something positive. Percy, if he wants to go out in a blaze of glory, he wants it to be heroic saving his friend. He doesn't want to be doing something incredible that people will tell myths about. He wants his friends to think I was a good person. That's the difference between him and Luke. That's the difference between Annabeth and Luke. And I think that, again, just really goes to amplify this villainous, distraught tendency. This lost child who has no idea what he wants. He just knows that he's going to take it.
Yeah. And it goes even further. We get, once again, Luke is confronted with, he's like, oh, it's so easy. Child's play. The Olympians are so arrogant. I succeeded. I was halfway across Jersey before they knew that it was taken. And Percy, trying to draw this out, the scorpion is sitting on his knee now and staring at him. And Percy says, so why didn't you bring the items to Kronos? And Luke's smile wavers. He says, I got overconfident. Zeus sent out his sons and daughters to find the stolen bolt. Artemis, Apollo, my father, Hermes. But it was Ares who caught me. I could have beaten him, but I wasn't careful enough. Always an excuse, and a crazy one. Once again, I wasn't really trying that time again. But if he actually was, he could have beaten the God of War.
And you know what's a little bit fun? Luke says, It was Ares who caught me. I could have beaten him, but I wasn't careful enough. He disarmed me, took the items of power, threatened to return them to Olympus, and burned me alive. There you go. Kratos, if you're out there, you were right. Ares did use that move on him.
We are referencing what is it that Luke taught Percy when they first started their training with the swords, and how Percy got little brothered by Luke doing this disarming technique. Luke's like, yeah, when it was used on me, crazy. But I learned it now, so, good to know.
Yeah, that is cool. I like that. But
Yeah.
also just all of this. You're so right. It's the flip-flopping back and forth of the, I got overconfident, I could have done it, and yet he does. He totally got caught. And to say that I could have beaten Ares when he clearly couldn't, it just goes to further show Luke is lost. And he takes credit for convincing Ares that this would create a massive war that Ares would like. And I wonder how much of that was Kronos. Knowing that he
Yeah.
can play with the minds even of the gods, especially because Luke says after that, afterward, the Lord of the Titans, he punished me with nightmares. I swore not to fail again.
Yeah. Bringing up the whole brainwashing, mind control plot point that we berated so much in the prior chapters with Ares. Not out of the realm of possibility. Unfortunately, that's probably the case. Because Luke does say that Kronos' voice came to him and told him what to say.
Yeah.
But then Luke immediately flips again and says, I put the idea in Ares' head. But it's not his words. It's somebody acting through him. He's just being another pawn, another conduit to some other master. It's just not the gods. But he refuses to admit that. Because this puppet master actually pays attention to Luke, even if it's attention that hurts, like nightmares.
Yeah. At this point, they start breaking down the events of the book.
Yep.
Percy says, "You summoned the Hellhound that night in the forest." And talking as a royal we now, the we, I suppose, being him and Kronos, so it's not quite as creepy, but it's got that effect. "We had to make Chiron think the camp wasn't safe for you, so we would start you on your quest." That works. Percy then picks up, "The flying shoes were cursed. They were supposed to drag me and the backpack into Tartarus." And Luke, "And they would have too, if it weren't for you meddling kids. I mean, that meddling satyr."
Yeah. Which
He,
hurts. That little section where he talks about Grover,
yeah,
it does hurt because I'm pretty sure there's a chapter where Grover mentions is it where they're traveling where he's like, I don't think Luke fully forgave me.
I think what you and I talked about was when Grover says that she forgave him, but he obviously just says Annabeth. So it
Right.
implies that Luke never did. And we went, yeah, that's probably true. And here it
Yeah.
is front and center. He says
Yeah.
Grover messes up everything he touches. He even confused the curse.
He doesn't even address him as Grover at first. He says you gave him to the satyr.
Yeah. He is clearly holding contempt, especially when Percy then brings up Thalia gave her life to save you. And this is how you repay her? And he says, don't speak of Thalia. The gods let her die. And that's one of the many things they will pay for.
Yeah. It's very, I don't know, Connor, if you've ever seen the Castlevania show.
Parts, because I heard it was very good and I wasn't sure I'd enjoy the whole thing. So I've pretty much just seen clips of it, including the whole fight that goes and starts from, "So you must be the Belmont."
Yeah. Okay. So there's one part in it where I guess spoilers slightly for Castlevania. If you guys haven't seen that yet, watch it. It's very good. Alucard, Dracula's son, is confronting his father because Dracula has declared war on humanity because humanity killed his wife, who was just a very kind, wise woman who was trying to learn science because she wanted to, practice medicine and better the world. And they said, she's a witch, and burned her at the stake. And so Dracula's like, I am going to rain down every agony imaginable from the pits of hell because you killed my wife. And she was the one thing that humanity did that was good. And you just turned her into ash. So I'm going to fucking murder all of you. Alucard approaches his father and says, in the name of my mother, I am telling you to stop. In her name, this cannot continue. And Dracula fucking swipes everything off the table. He turns, there's a big ass dramatic cape flip. And he says, this war endures in the name of your mother. And that little dialogue between Percy and Luke just reminds me of that.
Definitely
Where
same
Percy
energy.
is saying, Thalia gave her life. She wouldn't want this. But Luke, in so many words, is saying, I'm doing this because of her. I
Mhm.
am doing this to avenge her for retribution.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting dynamic. And again, Percy weirdly understands Thalia without even meeting her, without knowing her, more than Luke does at this point, because he has become so consumed and twisted by hatred and resentment that he is even damning the memories of the people who are closest to him, twisting their what should be happy memory, a beacon of solace for him, something that's grounding, into just visages of contempt.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
And an additional layer to this is obviously at the beginning of the book, he is wearing this mask of kindness toward Percy.
Mhm.
But I wonder how much easier that is made by Sally's presumed death. Because at that moment, Luke can think Percy gets it. Percy has lost something because of the gods, because of something that is not his fault, just like I have. But by the end of the book, Percy got it back. Percy, yet again, has proved Luke wrong. And what's crazy is when you start comparing the two, Sally was just in stasis, preserved right before the moment of her death by Hades. Thalia was turned into a tree, preserved in the moment just before her death by Zeus. It's the
Mhm.
exact same situation, but where Percy
Mhm.
says, I will find a way, there must be a way, Luke gives up. He becomes hopeless, which also
Yeah.
very nicely contrasts the hopeful Annabeth, who sees Thalia's sacrifice and thinks, I won't let it happen again. I will protect my friends. I am better and I will do this in her name.
Yeah. I mean, even further than that, Percy saying, I failed to save what matters most. I didn't save my mom because I knew that her death or staying in the underworld is what she would have wanted if it meant saving the rest of us. And Thalia's death, her turning into the tree that now protects Camp Half-Blood and Half-Blood Hill, is what she'd want. She would want her death to not have been in vain. Her death is what is keeping everybody safe right now. And the person that is ruining that is Luke.
Mm-hmm. You're so right. Luke
It's so
even
fucking
follows.
good, bro.
It is. That's really good. Well, and the crazy thing is, Luke then follows it up with, what has your dad ever done for you? And the funny thing is, Poseidon has done things for Percy, and Hermes has tried to do things for Luke. And unfortunately, Luke hasn't gotten to see it because Hermes failed. What Hermes tried to do for Luke didn't work. But Percy, he's gotten to see his father protect him and save his life. And funny enough, Luke underestimating that exact thing will be what allows Percy to live. Because Percy's constitution, after he gets stung by the scorpion, mixed with the slight bit of healing from the creek, will be what allows him to survive longer than 60 seconds and not die to the poison. At every turn, Luke fundamentally misunderstands what makes Percy strong and what
Yeah.
makes them different.
Yeah. And Connor, unfortunately, we need to take a break, or I'm at the very least going to take a break from talking about how fucking awesome this entire interaction is
That's
and
fine.
how
Yeah,
great
we've
Luke
still
is as
got
a
like
character.
6 pages, so yeah, we can
Yep.
keep moving it
No, no,
along.
no, no. Oh, we're not moving on.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about something that I actually take trouble with. And that is Luke mentions a few things that I feel like kind of come out of nowhere and don't feel right. Luke should view himself as a liberator, as a revolutionary. But then he starts talking about a guy that's like, yeah, I'm going to help commit genocide. He says, oh, look at yourself. What has your dad ever done for you? Kronos will rise. You've only delayed his plans. He will cast the Olympians into Tartarus. Okay, that's fair.
Yep.
And drive humanity back to their caves. Whoa, where the fuck did that come from? All except the strongest, the ones who serve him. Okay, that really makes no sense and is weirdly evil. Like, I know where he's evil, but this is a weirdly evil take for Luke to have that I don't know was ever properly set up in this book. That he's a the weak will die and the strongest will survive type.
Yeah, especially because the one part of him that really feels genuine in the earlier chapters is him looking out for the other Hermes campers. Hey
Correct.
guys, be nice to Percy. He's new. We've all been there. Is one of the things that really feels genuine. The friendship he has with Annabeth because she was young and alone and frightened feels genuine. I'll agree. I hadn't quite caught that and thought it was particularly weird. I was like, oh, that's generic villain shit. But when you point it out, it really does stick out as fundamentally disparate from the rest of his motivations.
Yeah. Like that's Ares.
Yeah, that is
That's
Ares.
Ares. Like that's not Luke. And then and it's followed up with like Percy says, "Hey, if you're so strong, fight me yourself. Call off the bug." And the scorpion's still, going up him. And Luke smiles. He says, "Nice try, Percy, but I'm not Ares. You can't bait me. My lord is waiting, and he's got plenty of quests for me to undertake." which again, like the first part, that's fair. He's not going to get baited, even though he already kind of has been baited a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. Referring to Kronos as my lord, again, feel like it kind of undercuts the idea of Luke doesn't want to be a servant. He just wants to be of use. And the idea that all Luke wants is quests. Quest, quest, quest. I just want quests. But again, I feel like I feel like that misses the point a little bit. And maybe that makes sense because Luke always misses the point. So maybe that's actually very on brand.
Mhm.
But I just don't know how I feel about that. As that's his big like mic drop. Got a lot of quests. It's like, so it's all just the glory. Like it's not about justice or righteous retribution or getting back at the gods. I don't know. But again, he's a guy of contradictions. So maybe it's just
Mhm.
like, I don't know how I'm supposed to take it. Maybe he doesn't even know how he's supposed to take it.
Yeah, I think the most I would say on that one is simply that the "My lord is waiting and he's got plenty of quests for me to undertake" is it's his lord. He's chosen that. It's not the gods, it's not this ephemeral thing, and we know as readers, and even Luke to some degree, should be aware that Kronos got into his head, but I think Luke, especially through Kronos' deception, probably feels like he is choosing to work for Kronos, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think the difference is. I think the lots of quests is I have lots of quests because someone finally sees my value. Someone sees that I'm not just some pawn in their game. I'm an important player. That's what Kronos does. He makes these people feel big and important and special, especially for someone like Luke, who has felt small his whole life. That's what violence and bigotry do. Like, that's how they take hold. They make you feel more important than someone else, and when you feel more important than someone else, that is what allows you to do horrible things.
Yeah.
And to some extent, I think you could also use that as justification for the previous line. I don't think it's quite as nice as, like, this line where it's like, I'm pretty confident that that does work. But even with the strong will survive, that is, I think, as you said, some eugenics type talking points because Luke is going, Kronos said I'm special. I am special. And now I'll prove it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me. I feel like it doesn't jive with the type of antagonist that Luke had been built up as and comes off as just kind of trite and cliche in a way that is unbecoming to Luke.
We'll
I
see.
I
We'll
like
see
the
how
idea of
important it
him
becomes.
being the liberator revolutionary who was willing to do what nobody else did to blaze a path forward out from under the boot of the gods. So to have him just be like, yeah, and also fuck the humans, they were gonna send them back to their caves and only the strong will survive. It's like, all right, that feels a little weird, but okay.
I won't disagree with that, but I think you, at least for me, you still have that liberator revolutionary angle, but it is much more that Luke sees it as those who are not strong enough to liberate themselves do not deserve liberation, which is a bad
Mhm.
mentality because obviously the weakest among us deserve it the most.
Right.
Again, a fundamental misunderstanding of things being core to Luke's character.
Yep. Okay, that's fair. You swung me over. I like that.
But with that, you have any other Luke things?
The only other Luke thing is that he says there's a golden age coming. Ooh, that's ominous.
Yep,
And then we just get more random magic, more random Kronos warlock magic that he's got
yep.
now. He slashes his sword in an arc and then disappears in a ripple of darkness. So he can just do that now. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's sick. I don't
Yeah.
know if he does that again. That is where I was going. It was if you have anything else to talk about for Luke, he is about to literally vanish from thin air. Fucking see ya.
I hope he never does that again. I like the idea that he could do it, but he's like, nah, I want Percy to always be worried about it. So it like takes up some of his brain space. But I'm
That's
just not.
crazy. I never considered that he could go to like obviously he's going to somewhere, but I thought for sure I was just like, "Oh yeah, he's leaving. He's only allowed to leave with this sword." I never thought that Percy would be, like, constantly looking over his shoulder like, "Dude, what the fuck?" Like, Luke has a
Dude, I
teleportation
swear,
sword.
he literally slashed reality and walked into it. Where the fuck he could be anywhere.
Annabeth's like, "Percy, magic like that doesn't exist." He's like, "I saw it!"
Dude, I literally saw that happen. Also, you said that Hades could do that. Who's to say Luke can't? He summoned a regular scorpion at my feet. The man is boundless.
Is this what true power is?
Is this it? An arachnid slowly crawling up my jeans?
This is the ultimate weapon. But
Speaking of the ultimate
I
weapon,
was literally
the
about to say,
scorpion
speaking of
lunges.
scorpion.
The scorpion lunges. Percy, it's a fucking scorpion. He kills it pretty easily, but he gets hit in the palm. All it takes is one sting, and Percy was dumb and fucking swatted it with his hand. So, yep, he got stung, and now he's going on a trip. His ears are pounding, his vision goes foggy. He's like, I gotta get to the water. And he goes and he stumbles the creek, he submerges his hand in the water, but it doesn't seem like anything happens. And Rick writes, the poison was too strong. Now, Connor, I don't know if you caught that, but this scorpion, it's actually venomous. Once again, checkmate Rick, and I'll accept whatever you want to owe me and pay me by check or wire transfer, whatever is more convenient for you, good sir. But I would like that fixed for all prints going forward and in the digital copy. Thank you very much. But yeah, poison is really fucking strong, and his vision starts going black.
It's not strong enough, though.
It isn't. He's barely standing. He's thinking he's got 60 seconds. He's got to get back to camp. Oh, he's dying. I'm not going to read this. He's just dying. His blood is coagulating inside of his veins. I don't know if scorpion venom is like a neurotoxin, but I'm sure his brain is fucking shutting down. But thank God for the forest nymphs, because they appear and start dragging Percy to safety. The last thing that he hears are counselors shouting for help, a centaur blowing a conch horn, and everything goes black.
Now, before you pick back up, Jack, I have an important question.
Yes.
Would you rather die or have the uncomfortable situation of drinking warm chocolate chip cookies? Because you had a very strong reaction to that the first time.
Connor, and this is how I know we're very good friends. I literally wrote in my book, just let me fucking die with this fucking iced, warm, liquid chocolate chip cookie nonsense.
That makes me so happy. Oh, man. Okay. That was good. You know what else makes me happy? Annabeth being genuinely concerned for Percy. And the first thing she says after he says, "Here we are again," is, "You fucking idiot. You
all right.
moron."
She did not say fucking. Was that an implied fucking, Connor?
Yes, absolutely. Annabeth says, "You idiot. You were green and turning gray when we found you. If it weren't for Chiron's healing, ... Now, Chiron's voice said, Percy's constitution deserves some of the credit." And I hate to be that guy. Did Chiron just contribute? It took 370 pages, but I think he contributed.
Just fucking wait. I need you to strap in.
Oh, I'm strapped.
It continues. It took the entire book, but Chiron actually isn't a brain-dead fucking moron for the rest of this chapter. It's incredible.
It's an amazing miracle.
It is. He says, yeah, Percy's constitution deserves some credit. He's smiling. He's like, hey, glad you're awake. He seems very tired. Percy says it looked like he'd stayed up all night creating Latin papers. Yes, how are you feeling? And once again, this is just a great description by Rick. Percy says, like my insides have been frozen, then microwaved. And double points for Chiron. He says apt, considering that was pit scorpion venom.
You know what? Maybe the real person we should be chastising for mixing up poison and venom the whole book is Percy.
is actually just Percy.
Because Percy's the narrator. He just didn't pay enough
Oh my
attention in
god.
science class.
That I take it all back. If Rick had actually been doing that, and it's just because Percy doesn't know the difference between poison and venom, but everybody else does, that is fucking phenomenal.
Now I just wish that there was, like, every time he said poison, that there was some character nearby to roll his eyes, you know?
It's just like,
Like,
Venom.
this
It'd be
fucking
great.
guy.
You know what? Maybe I wouldn't dislike Chiron so much with his semantical bullshit if he was like, Venom, Percy, it's Venom. And I'd be like, you know what? That's fair, but that's right.
That's the you're allowed to get away with that one.
That's right. I'm gonna give you that, Chiron. He's sipping nectar, and Percy explains everything that happened.
Yep.
And Annabeth, this is a very interesting moment for her. She says, I can't believe that Luke, and her voice falters. And then her expression turns angry and sad. There's like forlorn on her face. She says, yes, yes, I can believe it. May the gods curse him. He was never the same after his quest, which is a crazy switch up, but also like, I feel like is in character. She
Mhm.
didn't want to believe it at first, and then she thought about it and she's like, yeah, unfortunately, I see
On
it.
the tracks.
Yeah.
And then
And
Percy does the most Percy thing possible, which is, "I gotta go. I'm gonna get him."
and again, Chiron's riding this fucking wave. Says, no, Percy, the gods, and Percy snaps back. The gods won't even talk about Kronos. Zeus declared the matter closed. And Chiron, he pushes back. He says, I know this is hard. You must not rush out for vengeance. You aren't ready. And Percy says exactly what I was thinking. I didn't like it, but part of me suspected Chiron was right.
Chiron dispensing actual wisdom? Who could have
Yes,
imagined?
it's crazy. He was saving it all for the last 4 pages of the book. But here we are.
Just you guys wait. This is gonna be so important when you need it least.
That's right. Exactly. When the falling action's already done and we're basically like finished with everything, that's when Chiron's gonna really come in clutch. Percy's he's fighting back, and then he's like, "Oh, but your prophecy, right? From the oracle, the great prophecy, it was about Kronos, isn't it? And am I in it? What about Annabeth?" And Chiron is glancing around nervously. He's like, I can't talk about it." Percy's like, "Oh, so you've been ordered not to talk to me about it, right? That's it." And Chiron is sympathetic and says, "You will be a great hero, child. I will do my best to prepare you. But if I'm right about the path ahead of you," and then the thunder booms overhead, he was actually gonna say something. He was
I
actually gonna
know.
do it. And then Zeus gets in the way this time. So you know what? Maybe we've been too hard on Chiron. Maybe
No, we
he's
haven't.
doing this shit because, it's the end of the book. I'm giving him some slack, all right? Maybe
Okay.
all the shit we've gotten mad about, he's actually done what we've said, like, before, but Zeus keeps getting in the way and promises to, like, fucking smite him or something. So he's just so trained now. He's like, I have to be impotent and useless.
He's just, like, writing down in his journal, "Tomorrow I shall train Percy in thunder booms.
Yep.
Alright, tomorrow I shall teach
Okay.
Percy thunder booms again. Alright, tomorrow I'll do nothing, I guess. Fuck you."
Yep. I'm gonna pretend like everything is still normal here at Yancey Academy, even though I'm pretty sure there's a Fury teaching algebra. That's right. That's what I'm gonna do. And it's quiet outside.
Now I'm just imagining Chiron leaning out a window, just old man screams at cloud, "Is this what
Literally.
you wanted?"
And, and it is. It
Yep.
is what Zeus wanted. But he does actually dispel some solid wisdom. He sighs in frustration, says the gods have their reasons. Knowing too much of your future is never a good thing. I mean,
Yep.
that's like the whole thing of Oedipus, right?
I mean, that, but also, like, in this very novel, that's I mean, she knows too much of her son's future, but that's what causes May Castellan to go mad, which is what
That's
ruins
true.
Luke's life. So, that's a thing.
Yeah, that's true. Between Oedipus and that, yeah, definitely sometimes it's good to not know what's happening. And again, Hershey's like, so what? We're just supposed to sit back? And Chiron gives another good answer. We will not sit back. Oh,
I
oh,
know.
oh my God. They're going to do stuff? They're not just going to wait and see? That's incredible. So much character growth.
Whew. Whew,
He says,
it's too much.
but you must be careful. Kronos wants you to come unraveled. He wants your life disrupted, your thoughts to be clouded with fear and anger. Do not give him what he wants. Train patiently. Your time will come. Round of applause. He did it. He did it, ladies and gentlemen.
More and more good advice.
It's crazy. Does it make up for literally failing miserably throughout the rest of the book? No, but this is a start.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the start is at the very end, but hey, he's doing it.
Isn't one thing ending the beginning of another?
Sure, dude.
Moving on.
Moving on, Chiron's like, listen, dude, you gotta trust me. I know all evidence points to the contrary and that you shouldn't, but like, I'm making a lot of sense right now. So again, let's just ride this wave. You gotta decide your path for the coming year. I can't tell you the right choice. And Percy says, I got the feeling he had a very definite opinion, and it was taking all his willpower not to advise me. And Chiron leaves it to him. You gotta decide, are you staying at Camp Half-Blood year-round, or are you gonna return to the mortal world for 7th grade and just be a summer camper?
You
Think on
really
that.
gotta choose. The harpies are very hungry.
They're so hungry, dude. If they don't got that paperwork by like 6 p.m., they are going to pick your bones clean.
But then he drops another bomb. He says, "Oh, and my dear," glancing at Annabeth, "whenever you're ready, they're here." "Who's here?" Percy asks. Nobody answered, and then Chiron just leaves, knowing that Annabeth has to tell Percy herself.
Yes. Perhaps in other chapters, him just rolling off would be like, what the fuck was that about? But he's right. Again, that is not his place.
And so Annabeth is studying the ice in the drink, which is code for avoiding eye contact.
Yeah.
Percy says, "What's wrong?" And she says, "Nothing, 'cause nothing's wrong." She sets the glass on the table. "I just took your advice about something."
The pin, Connor. I know
The
we've been
pin.
recording for a very, very long time, and we've
Yep.
had so many things to say, but that pin is right there. I'm going to pull that out.
Got it.
Percy is making his decision based
Mhm.
on advice that Annabeth gave him about the real world and family and what matters.
Mhm.
Annabeth has made a very important decision for how she is going to move forward with her family based on advice that Percy gave her. Mwah!
Yep.
Beautiful.
It all comes full circle. It's so good. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And as they head outside, they manage another step and then another step. Percy's in pain, relying on Annabeth, which I do think is subtle symbolism to how far their friendship has come, how much they've come to rely on one another, even for small things like taking a step. They get out, and Annabeth asks, "What are you going to do?" Percy says, "I don't know." He indicates that he thinks that Chiron wants him to stay year-round, put in more training. But then Annabeth drops the bomb. "I'm going home for the year, Percy." I stared at her. "You mean to your dad's?" She pointed to the crest of Half-Blood Hill. Next to Thalia's pine tree, at the very edge of the camp's magical boundaries, a family stood silhouetted. 2 little children, a woman, and a tall man with blonde hair. They seemed to be waiting.
Yeah. Powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
Percy's right. He says that that takes guts.
I like that the stepmom is there too with the
Yeah.
other kids because it shows that Annabeth's perspective might actually have been wrong.
Mhm.
That she's not just giving her dad another chance, she's giving the whole family unit another chance. And I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. I think that
Yeah.
shows genuine growth. And you could very easily, especially with the way that we've just dismissed Gabe, dismiss this other individual as like, "Yep, turns out my dad was wrong. She is a bad person." But that's not the answer. People are complicated. And Annabeth is allowed to have her own emotions cloud her judgment. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we are basically at the end. Annabeth reveals that she wrote a letter to her dad. She said she was sorry, which is like, that takes guts,
Huge.
especially for a child to apologize to an adult. Like, that is not easy. And as you said,
Especially
Percy,
for Annabeth to apologize. Are you kidding me?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like Percy said, that took guts. But I like this next part. She says, "You won't try anything stupid during the school year, will you? At least, not without sending me an iris message." And Percy says, "I won't go looking for trouble. I usually don't have to." We get a little bit more, and I love this. "When I get back next summer," she said, "we'll hunt down Luke. We'll ask for a quest, but if we don't get approval, we'll sneak off and do it anyway." "Agreed," Percy responds. "Sounds like a plan worthy of Athena. Take care, seaweed brain. Keep your eyes open. You too, wise girl." And then she walks off and joins her family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whew.
She goes up, she gives her dad an awkward hug, looks back down the valley one last time, and I love this next part. She touched Thalia's pine tree, then allowed herself to be led over the crest and into the mortal world.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, seeing Annabeth do something brave, Percy follows suit. He looks at the
Mhm.
sea. He thinks of his dad, saying, "The sea does not like to be restrained." Percy makes his decision. He says, "I'll be back next summer. I'll survive until then. After all, I am your son." And he asks Argus to take him down to cabin 3 so he can pack his bags and get ready to go home.
Yeah. Close the book. Whew.
Wow. Why
Drink
don't
it
we
in,
take a s
Connor.
I know. Why don't we take a seat under Thalia's pine tree, and we won't get to the myths just yet. I think you and I are gonna do a full episode discussing our thoughts on the book as a whole. So let's
Yes.
do our best to keep our review isolated to this chapter.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed this. To be honest with you, I knew I was going to enjoy it. I certainly don't think it's like the best chapter of the book, but it is a very solid close. It feels a little packed, a little cluttered, like it almost could have been 2 chapters, but I understand why it's 1. But all of the big character moments feel really earned, really well done, and very clean.
I agree. I liked the chapter. I don't think this chapter's mission was to be the best one, but
Yeah,
I think it does its job very well. I think it, like Rick has done many times before, does quite a lot with truly very little in terms of like what we were left with. It was dense. I do agree that I almost felt like it would have been dragging if it was 2 different chapters. There's really not much I would have changed. And it had a bunch of Luke in it, which what's not to love, you know?
you and I are never gonna complain about more Luke Castellan.
Yeah. It did its job in several ways, but the main one is when he says, "I packed my bags and got ready to go home." Period. Blank page, next page, book done. I felt like I was able to close the book and be like, "Ah, that was satisfying."
Yeah, very much so.
But any more thoughts I have on that would start bleeding into actual book review territory. So I like what you're saying. How about we sit under Thalia's tree in the shade? And let's go over some myths one last time for this book, Connor.
Oof. And where to start? I think we're gonna work backwards a little bit. Let's start with Chiron as a healer, or other times that Chiron actually did something
I was
useful.
gonna say, very positive Chiron chapter this time around.
Mhm. So, I may have mentioned it in my initial description of Chiron, that one of his big things in Greek mythology is that he is the inventor of medicine. Period. The whole study. That's him. There are some sources that are very clear about this, and others that are more show don't tell. But let's start with the very straightforward, in-your-face ones. In the 2nd century AD, in the Fabulae by Pseudo-Hyginus, in a section titled Inventors and Their Inventions, it states, Chiron, son of Saturnus, which is Roman for Kronos, first used herbs in the medicinal art of surgery. And a century prior, in the 1st century AD, Pliny the Elder wrote, the science of herbs and drugs was discovered by Chiron, the son of Saturnus and Philyra. So we have a very solid basis. Now, those are from a little bit later, but generally speaking, these seem to be well-founded. Even as early as the Iliad, we have many references to Chiron as a renowned healer. Speaking of, why don't we start talking about some of those references to Chiron as a master healer? I'm going to start with one that is from a little bit later, the 1st century BC. In the Elegies by Propertius, he tells of how Chiron managed to heal the blindness of someone named Phoenix using his medicinal talent. I mentioned that there are references to the medicinal knowledge, we'll say, of Chiron in the Iliad. In Book 4, when Menelaus, one of the Achaeans, has been injured in battle, they seek out Machaon. As he arrives to help, it reads, the god-sent healer reached the captain's side and quickly drew the shaft from his buckled belt. He pulled it clear, the sharp barbs broke back. When he saw the wound where the tearing arrow hit, he sucked out the blood and deftly applied the healing salves that Chiron, friend of Asclepius, gave his father long ago. And later, in Book 11, Eurypylos tells Patroclus, cut the arrow out of my thigh, and put kind medicines on it, good ones, which they say you have been told of by Achilles, since Chiron, most righteous of the centaurs, told him about them. It is important to note that Chiron trained Achilles, and Patroclus is Achilles. They're definitely hooking up, okay? We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but those two, they like bread and butter, all right? They on one another.
Understood. I'll keep that in mind.
And then finally, one more thing to really hammer home that this really is Chiron's thing. Let's talk about Chiron as the teacher of Asclepius, the god of medicine. For those who don't know the story of Asclepius, we'll get there in like 11 books. What you need to know is that he was born a demigod son of Apollo and raised to godhood later as god of medicine after he cured death. Yes, cured death. Well, Asclepius, the man who cured death, learned the art of medicine from Chiron. There is, of course, the mention that we just discussed from Book 4 of the Iliad. However, our good friend Pseudo-Apollodorus tells us very directly how Asclepius came to be in Chiron's mentorship. As she, that's Coronis, Asclepius' mother, was being consumed on her funeral pyre, Apollo snatched her baby, and his son, Asclepius, from the fire and took him to the centaur Chiron, who reared him and taught him medicine and hunting. This is also attested in an earlier work, the 5th century BC Nemean Ode by Pindar, where he writes, wise-hearted Chiron, to Asclepius he taught the soft-fingered skills of medicine's lore. So, the guy who cured death learned from infancy from Chiron. Pretty short, that's everything I've got, but definitively it shows that if there is one thing Chiron is really good at, it is medicine.
It's medicine, yeah, and not working against the clock.
Nope. Definitely not that. It's medicine, a long, drawn-out study.
Uh-huh.
So, the next thing is we had a fun little 4th of July fireworks show. I made sure to draw attention to the things that occurred during this fireworks show, and I seriously considered making a joke and telling you the quote-unquote myth of the crossing of the Delaware.
And Connor, I want you to know I also considered doing that, but then I got lazy.
Same. I thought this episode was going to be too long as it was.
Yep. And you know what? We were right.
We were right. So, The Nemean lion, I've also mentioned before. We will have a better time to talk about that, so we won't talk about Hercules and the Nemean lion. We are going to talk about Artemis chasing a boar. And we're going to talk about it because it pissed me off, okay?
Okay.
Because there is no myth that I could find where Artemis chases a boar. There are two myths associated with Artemis and boars, neither of which in which she chases it. And really, there's only one that very strongly associates her with a boar. So that's the myth I've picked for today. Artemis and the Caledonian boar. So, first, we should establish what is the Caledonian boar. Well, it is a large, sometimes described as giant, wild boar sent by Artemis to punish King Oeneus for offending her. This is actually summarized really well in Book 9 of the Iliad, where it reads, "It all began when Artemis, throned in gold, loosed a disaster on them. Incensed that Oeneus offered her no first fruits, his orchard's crowning glory. The rest of the gods had feasted full on oxen, true, but the huntress alone, almighty Zeus's daughter, Oeneus gave her nothing. It slipped his mind, or he failed to care. But what a fatal error! How she fumed! Zeus's child, who showers arrows, she loosed a bristling wild boar, his tusks gleaming, crashing his savage, monstrous way through Oeneus's orchard, ripping up whole trunks from the earth, to pitch them headlong, rows of them, roots and all, apple blossoms and all. But the son of Oeneus, Meleager, cut him down, mustering hunters out of a dozen cities, packs of hounds as well. No slim band of men could ever finish him off, that rippling killer. He stacked so many men atop the tear-soaked pyre, but over his body, the goddess raised a terrific din, a war for the prize, the huge beast's head and shaggy hide." So to summarize, King Oeneus of Caledon forgot or neglected to give Artemis proper offerings from his orchard, so she did the natural thing and sent a giant murderous boar to destroy the orchard and kill some people.
I get it.
You might
That's what
take
I do.
Yeah, exactly. You might take note that in this version, Oeneus' son Meleager is who kills the boar. But before we talk more a little bit about that part, I'd like to give you a slightly more vivid picture of the Caledonian boar. Most sources don't depict the boar in too much detail outside of being giant and murderous, as
A
we
big
just
ass
saw in the
pig.
Iliad. Exactly. But Ovid did what Ovid does, and he wrote some pretty poetry about this giant murder pig, so I'd like to read it for you. "The smarting goddess sent a giant boar, huge as the bulls that grassy Epiros breeds, dwarfing the bulls of fertile Sicily. His eyes ablaze with fire and blood, his neck solid and steep, his bristles long and sharp, rigid as spear shafts, his broad, sweeping flanks flecked as he hissed and snorted with hot foam. His mouth flashed lightning, and his burning breath seared the green leaves. Now the young growing corn he trampled in the blade, and now cut short the harvest in the ear, and laid ruin to the farmer's ripened hopes. In vain the threshers, in vain the barns awaited the promised crops. Down fall the heavy grapes, the trailing vine, down fall the olive's berries. Flock too he savages, beyond the help of dogs or shepherds, nor can bulls, fierce bulls, defend their herds. The people fled. They felt no safety save within a city's walls, till Meleager and his heroes came, a chosen band, all fired by hopes of fame."
Boring. Get it?
I get it, because it's a
You get
boar.
that? Because it's
I
a
got it.
boar.
I see what you did there. So now we've seen twice that it took a band of heroes to take down this bull. So who were these heroes? The story in the Iliad, as I mentioned, just says it's a group of famed hunters, but neglects to actually list who those hunters were. We have a piece of pottery from around the 6th century BC that actually labels Many of the hunters, some of which you may know, including Melanion, Atalanta, Peleus, Meleager, Castor and Polydeuces, or Pollux, Acastus, and the fallen Ancaeus, or Ancaeus. This gives a bit of a further picture of who would have been thought to have been part of the hunt at that time. I'll actually link to a version of the image which has all of these names literally written on the pottery. It's really cool. So that'll be in the show notes so you can look it up and see in further detail. The story of the Caledonian boar actually only makes up a small portion of all the cool stuff and stories that are depicted on it. But that list of hunters is actually pretty consistent with the group that we'll see going forward. In the 3rd century BC, in his hymn to Artemis, Callimachus wrote, Atalanta in days of yore, Arcadian Iasius' daughter, whose shaft slew Caledon's boar. The heroes who came, summoned to hunt the terror of Caledon, could not dispraise, not her prowess. The tokens of that her victory to Arcadia were brought, and the tusks of the boar there yet may ye see, giving us the first definitive record of it actually having been Atalanta instead of Meleager who killed the boar. I was about to read all of the people that Ovid chooses to list that were part of the hunt, but as I was writing my notes, I was quickly realizing he lists an insane number of people. And I don't think anyone wanted to hear me sit here and list 29 people.
What?
Yes.
Connor, that's what I'm here for. I want to hear you butcher names.
Oh, well, in that case, get ready for 30 names.
No. We've been here for like 3 hours.
Yup.
Keep it going.
I will keep it pretty short. I want to point out that it is indeed more than even 29 people because there are 29 definitive names without including Meleager, who isn't listed because he put together the group. And then there's even more because there are 2 listed groups that are just named as the sons of X person that were also sent. And then there's a 3rd group that is presumably not someone's sons that is also sent by a king. The highlights, the people that you would like to know that Ovid says are there, are Jason, the Argonaut, our favorite dumbass duo, Theseus and Pirithous, who are listed as, and I quote, blessed pair of friends.
Oh yeah, that right? They're close.
And Penelope's father-in-law, who is in fact listed as Penelope's father-in-law, not by his name Laertes or as father of Odysseus, but just Penelope's father-in-law. And of course, Atalanta, whose description takes up literally half of the paragraph, despite the list of 30 fucking people.
Yeah, but it's Atalanta.
Exactly. And that part I actually will read because it is important to what we will get to in just a moment. It reads that Atalanta, the green glade's pride and grace. A plain brooch pinned the collar of her dress. Her hair was simple, gathered in a knot from her left shoulder. A quiver of ivory hung, rattling, and her left hand held a bow. So she was dressed, her features in a boy you'd think a girl's, and in a girl a boy's. Meleager saw her. In a flash his heart leapt high, while heaven opposed. And deep he drank love's flame. Happy indeed, he thought, the man whom she deems worthy of her hand. So, this brings us to one final question. Who killed the boar? Meleager or Atalanta? Those are the 2 camps. It's one or the other. Many of the stories just say that Meleager killed the boar, end of story. Nice and simple. The only one I could find that said Atalanta killed the boar was just the hymn to Artemis that I read for you earlier, that line. But then there's a very common version, that it's both of them. In this version, Meleager puts together the group of hunters, and the hunters all go out, and Atalanta, with her bow, gets the first hit on the boar, earning her a right to the kill. Meleager gets the final hit on the kill, making it his, and the trophy also his. He then, in these many versions, chooses to give the trophy to Atalanta, stating that they could not have killed the boar without her first arrow in the beast to weaken it and slow it. And then Thestius and his brother, or the two sons of Thestius, it changes based on the version, but it doesn't really matter. They do the same thing in all of them. They claim that one of them hit the boar first, or that she just doesn't deserve it. In all versions, they are opposed to having a woman on the hunt in the first place, and they think that Meleager only honors her with the trophy because he thinks she's pretty. So they steal the trophy from her. And Meleager, being the son of a king, and the guy who put this all together, says, hey, that's not fucking cool. And he kills them and gives the trophy back to Atalanta, and that is usually the end of the story.
You know what? Hell yeah. Chivalry isn't dead.
So, that is the story of the Caledonian boar. The only
Damn.
story I could find about Artemis and a boar that made sense for this chapter.
Hey, that works for me, man.
And so finally, as we lay this book to rest, what better way to end it than by talking about burial shrouds? Ancient Greek funerary practices. We're not going to dwell on all of the funerary practices because that would be a lot of work. So I've tried to isolate on just the shrouds. Now, as with many things, we can turn to the works of Homer to find some of the earliest references to what we're looking for. Of course, burial practices do change over time, but it provides a good place to start, especially as much of what Percy Jackson entails is based in the mythology and does draw heavily on both the Odyssey and the Iliad. In the Iliad, we're going to look at the death of Patroclus, Achilles' best boyfriend. And in the Odyssey, we're going to be looking at the funeral shroud that Penelope weaves for Laertes, the father of Odysseus, to trick the suitors. So let's start with Book 23 of the Iliad and the death of Patroclus. So context, Achilles has been refusing to fight, so Patroclus wears Achilles' armor to stir his men to battle and is killed by Hector, a prince and the greatest warrior in all of Troy. After his death, as they bring his body back, all of the men are very, very sad. It reads, the sands grew wet. The armor of fighting men grew wet with tears. Such bitter longing he roused, Patroclus, that terror who routed Trojans headlong. Achilles led them now in a throbbing chant of sorrow, laying his man-killing hands on his great friend's chest. Farewell, Patroclus. There are then quite a few pages in between before we get to the shroud. But generally speaking, what happens is the Achaeans feast, Achilles refuses to take a bath, he goes to bed, he dreams of Patroclus' ghost, and they have a dream where they feel each other up. At this point, I want to make it abundantly clear.
I think we've all been there.
We will be talking about this loving romance and cover the death of Patroclus in full, but I'm saving that for a later novel in the series. I'm thinking around Battle of the Labyrinth. The next day, Achilles points out where he thinks is best for the funeral pyre. The other soldiers build it. They lay Patroclus within it. They toss on the bodies of 12 noble Trojan sons. And for good measure, they sacrifice a variety of animals and pour the blood around the pyre.
Wait, were the sons alive?
Oh, no, they killed them first.
Oh, all right, gotcha. Silly me.
Yep. No, they desecrate them and cut them to pieces, and then they toss them on the funeral pyre.
Okay.
They let the pyre burn all day, and at the end of the day, we finally get to the use of the funerary shroud. It reads, they first put out the fires with glistening wine, far as the flames had spread and the ashes bedded deep. In tears, they gathered their gentle comrades' white bones, all in a golden urn sealed with a double fold of fat, and stowed the urn in his shelter, covered well with a light linen shroud, then laid his barrow out. Around the pyre they planted a ring of stone revetments, piled the loose earth high in a mound above the ring, and once they'd heaped the barrow, turned to leave. Then they have some funeral games, the end. Short version, we establish that they burned him on a funeral pyre, They placed his stuff in an urn, his body, not his stuff, and then they draped it in a funerary shroud. And that is the practice with the shroud.
Take notes. Do that with me for my funeral.
You got it. I'm on
I
it.
want 12 desecrated noble sons tossed upon my pyre.
I'm writing this down, Jack. I want you to know I'll fulfill your wishes.
I know you will.
So let's now talk about the Odyssey. This one is very straightforward. The context for this one is that Telemachus has called an assembly in the hopes that the people will listen to him of how the suitors have been abusing the hospitality of his household without Odysseus there to stop them. After pleading to the people, Antinous responds, "What high and mighty talk, Telemachus? No holding you. You want to shame us and humiliate us, but you should know, the suitors are not to blame. It is your own dear, incomparably cunning mother. For 3 years now, and it will soon be 4, she has been breaking the hearts of the Achaeans, holding out hope to all and sending promises to each man privately, but thinking otherwise. Here is an instance of her trickery. She had her great loom standing in the hall, and the fine warp of some vast fabric on it. We were attending her, and she said to us, 'Young men, my suitors, now my lord is dead. Let me finish my weaving before I marry, or else my thread will have been spun in vain. It is a shroud I weave for Lord Laertes. When cold death comes to lay him on his bier, the country wives would hold me in dishonor if he, with all his fortune, lay unshrouded. We have men's hearts. She touched them. We agreed. So every day she wove on the great loom, but every night by torchlight she unwove it. And so for 3 years she deceived the Achaeans. But when the seasons brought the 4th around, one of her maids, who knew the secret, told us. We found her unraveling the splendid shroud. She had to finish then, although she hated it. Now here is the suitors. Answer you and all the Achaeans. Mark it well. Dismiss your mother from the house, or make her marry the man her father names, and she prefers. Does she intend to keep us dangling forever?" So, we have a second instance of a shroud for the dead.
Uh-huh. So, just real quick, and I know
Mhm.
that's not the point of that story. For like 3 years, she was just undoing it, and nobody really thought to, like, question that. They're just like, "Damn, she's really taking her sweet time with that."
Yeah,
Okay,
he's a king.
cool.
They thought, it must be a really good shroud for this king.
Yeah,
Hey,
cool,
man,
man.
it was the past. People weren't thinking that hard.
So true. That's right. If that's one thing I know about history is people weren't thinking.
Actually, the truth is they were thinking really hard about other things.
That's true. Like,
You
I
see,
don't know, not dying at a young age.
where to get their next meal.
I was gonna say, are they gonna starve? Are the
Yup.
gods going to destroy them and their livelihood?
But I went out of my way and I thought I would pull just a little bit more information on burial shrouds. Because while it's cool to just have these stories, they don't really have a point. So I went and pulled a paper written by Frank Pierpont Graves, written in his coursework and studies at Columbia College in Brooklyn. In May of 1891, this paper
Oh,
was
hell yeah.
published.
That's dope.
And he wrote, honestly, a really cool and in depth paper on ancient Greek burial practices. The paper is titled The Burial Customs of the Ancient Greeks. How to the point.
Yes. I love academia.
But he writes and references some of the same things I did. He mentions how in the work of the Iliad, the Greeks prepare the body of Patroclus for burial. They cover the hero's body with a snowy funeral robe. He says that the white garment was probably common for mourning. And in fact, there are inscriptions from later that direct the dead to be wrapped specifically in 3 white cloths. He then goes on to say in the next paragraph, a law of Ceos, enacted probably in the latter part of the 6th century, and resembling the law of Solon very closely, regulates the matter of burials with considerable particularity. This law aims to restrain the excessive cost of funeral ceremonies. It limits the wrapping of the dead to 3 white cloths, of which the total price shall not exceed 100 drachmas, about $20 in 1891 money,
Okay.
because he gave a comparison.
Yes. So that's a good chunk of change then.
Yes. He then follows that the law also specified the body must be laid on a bed with slender legs. If you caught earlier that Lord Laertes would be laid on a bier, the bier is another name for a funeral bed. It writes that the body must be laid on a bed with slender legs and must not be entirely concealed by the draping, a precaution against violent deaths. So the idea is if you have to see the dead, you're less likely to kill people in a violent manner because you'd have to look at it.
Okay.
He also
Sure.
writes, in the paintings, the face and the upper part of the breast are uncovered. The color of the wrappings or shroud on the lessists are not uniformly white, for some violet and even some of green are seen on these white vases, which belong to the 4th and 5th centuries before our era, and which are found almost exclusively in the tombs of Athenians. And lastly, he gives us a little bit more description of the bed itself and how it looked. The relatives who, in the pictures, stand about the funeral bed or bier display gestures of some violence, indicating that time has not yet softened the keenness of their sorrow. They hold various objects in their hand, which are intended as offerings at the tomb. A sort of narrow scarf is very frequent. It is composed of a flat band of cloth terminating in a fringe at each end. And the color is by no means uniform, red, black, and violet appearing in different instances. This long, narrow scarf was employed in all religious ceremonies, sacrifices, thanksgivings, and consecrations. Its significance is difficult to determine. But for us, this shows that even though we have laws stating that the funerary shrouds should be white, it wasn't unreasonable for these shrouds to have decoration. And so it is, in some sense, accurate that the funerary shrouds in Percy Jackson are also decorated. I did also find some really cool ancient art that was referenced in this paper that is on display at the Getty Museum that is from around 490 to 470 BC, showing a woman draping a funerary shroud over the dead. So that'll also be in the show notes in case you want to see that.
Very neat.
But that is the end of our very final myth section. So I think it
Damn.
is time to lay a funerary shroud over Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Book 1, The Lightning Thief. I think we'll see you in Sea of Monsters.
Yeah. See ya.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to support our content, please be sure to leave a review, share with your friend, and follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, this has been Notes from the Oracle. We did it, baby!
Woo! Oh, man. Connor, do you think it would be annoying if going forward, when I say see ya, I put emphasis on the C for all of Sea of Monsters? But, it's crazy. I know we're still gonna be making stuff for this book. Like, we have to do our full book rundown and review, and we're gonna do some of the extra stuff that we've got planned
Absolutely.
for it. But it is nutty that, like, I have a book that from start to finish has written notes and highlights like it were an academic journal.
I
And it's
know, right?
fucking Percy Jackson and the Olympians and the Lightning Thief.
I kind of love it.
It's absurd. But it's so neat that we made it this far with recording.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that we've recorded an entire book's worth of content, I'm proud of us, dude. And
Me
I know it's
too.
not it's like, oh, you guys are talking into a mic for a bit, but, like, I don't know, the consistency of it. That's the big thing.
Yeah, and here's the thing, I totally understand where people would say, "You're just talking into a mic for a bit." And I think there are probably some people who do it differently than us that really are just talking into a mic for a bit, and that's okay. But you and I do take notes, and I feel like we really put effort into the analyses, and I feel like we're really delivering a good product, and that's not even mentioning all of the effort that goes into the mythology stuff, the editing. I feel like,
Yeah.
not everybody realizes how much a work a podcast is. I'm not saying all that to throw you under the bus. I mean that in like a genuine sense. I really think it's impressive that we have done as much as we have. And I'm more impressed, I think, almost by the fact that we are so definitively like, when does book two start? Because I
Yeah.
feel like this could be a really good spot to be like, you know what? That was fun. We did it. We had our time and our fun with it. But like, come on, I'm not quitting now.
No, I gotta see what happens.
Plus,
I gotta see what happens next.
it was
And
so fun.
you are not throwing me under the bus. I was gonna throw myself under the bus and say, yeah, kudos to you. I know I've said it before, but genuinely, high praise for all the work that you've put in with the research and providing these, I don't even want to say little tidbits, but straight up lore dumps every
Yeah.
episode for multiple different myths and keeping it fresh and exciting for me as somebody who does not know anything about this stuff, or my knowledge is very limited. It keeps it very fun. And that you've been able to deliver week after week is genuinely, I don't know where you get the time. I don't, especially knowing all the other shit that you've got going on. I don't know how you do it.
I I'll say this much. I make the time for it because I love it. I would not do it if I was not well and truly enjoying every moment of it
Mhm.
because it's so rewarding, and I only really get the feedback from the people who, like, I actively talk to in my daily life. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But the views and the listens are getting to be higher than that, not by much, but such that it's like, I hear what my friends say, and they're like, "Connor, this is really cool. You and Jack are making something really fun." And so it's really cool to think that there are people out there that have no idea who we are, that are enjoying and connecting with us over this shared love of the
Yeah.
story and the interest in the mythology and all of that, and it makes the work worth it, and I think that's really
Mhm.
fucking cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a blast. And again, it's one of those things, it was a little, I found myself getting a little melancholic finishing up this book, and then it pretty immediately went away when I'm like, "Oh, there's so much content.
There
Like, there's
yeah.
so many fucking books. We're barely in it."
It's so
And I am
funny, but
curious. Oh, go ahead.
I would say it's so funny, but I'm already like, "Man, I'm looking forward to the Egyptian and Norse stuff," just because 'cause I'm like, "Dude, I'm worried I'm gonna run out of myths."
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. We'll cross
Don't worry,
that
I'll
bridge
make
if
it
we
work.
get there. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very curious. I can't remember if I've said this to you before, but specifically going into Sea of Monsters, out of all the books, like when I was growing up, when I was obsessed with this series, it was probably the book that I read the least.
Oh, same.
Like I would skip it. Like I'd read Lightning Thief, and then I'd skip Sea of Monsters, and then I'd do Titan's Curse. Battle of the Labyrinth was my personal favorite as a kid. So I genuinely remember very, very little of this upcoming book. And I'm curious to see, like, if I figure out why I skipped it, or if I'm confused why I skipped it. I'm hopeful that I'm like, this is fucking dope. But part of me's a little like, man, if I was skipping this as a 12-year-old, what can of worms am
Are
I
we getting
about to
ourselves
open
into?
up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am well aware that in the community, people, like, they make the book tier list, and Sea of Monsters is always on the bottom,
Oh,
at least of
no.
the first 5,
Oh,
so we'll
great.
see.
Uh-huh. Who knows? I mean, I also Iron Man 2 is one of my favorite Marvel movies, so maybe maybe I'll be a Sea of Monsters defender.
Honestly, I'm so excited for that, like, genuinely to look at it from a new perspective, and I know that you and I have both been very harsh on Tyson in our memory. I
Yeah.
am truly curious, maybe not excited, but curious to see if my opinions on that character have changed at all and
Yeah.
how that lines up.
I mean, dude, the opinions that I had are, based on some memories from my childhood with this first book. Like, the fact that I outright didn't like Chiron is kind of incredible to me. I was excited to read about Chiron, and then he just
Yeah,
kept pissing me the fuck off.
that is one of
I
2
also
characters that I think you would name. Are you gonna sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I was just gonna say it was, Chiron, and honestly, I was surprised at how much Grover really grew on me too.
Mhm, and that's the 2nd character I thought you were gonna mention, and those are the exact 2 I would mention. 100% same thoughts. I did not expect to dislike Chiron nearly as much as I did coming out of this book, but
Uh-huh.
I always liked Grover. I did not expect to come out of this book being like, "Damn, Grover might have been my favorite character."
Really?
It doesn't quite get there, unfortunately. I think for
Okay.
me, it's yeah, unsurprisingly, it doesn't quite get there. I think for me, it's still Percy, at least for, like, book 1, but we can talk
Right.
about that more later. Actually, I'm gonna write
Mhm.
that down. That's a good question to discuss, favorite character and
Favorite
why.
character?
But yeah, Grover really did grow on me. He grew on me a
Yeah.
lot.
Mhm. Yeah, and even just, like, Luke, just the idea of finding Luke so compelling so early on, and because I don't even really remember caring about Luke that much. Like, when I was first reading through the series, I was much more enamored with the hero and the protagonist, and, "Ooh, that's the
Yeah.
villain." Don't think about it much more than that. But now I'm just like, "This guy has facets and layers,
He's got
and
some shit going on.
he is" this sounds fucked up. Luke Castellan might be wasted on middle grade fiction book
I
series.
agree.
Like, and not to say that Percy Jackson deserves a worse antagonist, but also like, dude, this guy's got a lot of gas.
As someone who was a 12-year-old and read this, the 12-year-olds are not picking up what Luke is putting down, and he is
No.
putting down hard.
Yes. Yeah. Man. No, this has been great. I am once again very thankful that you asked me to join you on this little journey. It has meant a lot, and I am so brutally excited to cap off this book with doing some fun episodes.
Yeah,
Just dicking around, give it a book, book in review for us, almost like a year in review,
yeah.
and then jumping into the next one. Ugh, yeah, I'm giddy, dude. I'm giddy.
Me too. Like, I have nothing really to say other than, yeah, I am so fucking stoked for where we go next.
Yeah, man.
Mm.
Ugh.
Mm-mm-mm.
Uh.
Alright, I think that's where we cut it.